All right. Good evening or good afternoon or good morning, depending on where our small but mighty audience is viewing us from. Please do like and subscribe. It helps with this thing that's called the algorithm, whatever that means. Again, this is the Morbid Symptoms podcast. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tara Van Dyke, the host, and I'm very happy that my two friends of the show slash correspondents are back. I have Anna C. And Artless is back. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
Right. And they've we're going to be talking about, do Muslim women need to be saved? Question mark. Well, and so the question mark is very important. And I just want to give a bit of background about why I reached out to you guys and said, hey, would you be willing to do you have time to come up and do to log on? Hey, come over and discuss this issue, because not only because of what's going on in Israel, Palestine, and the broader region, but also in the UK and in the United States, at least the two places I'm familiar with. I don't know what's going on in where Artless is hanging out. But there seems to be, again, this issue about Muslim women. And again, how they're being portrayed or marginalized or erased, either as a cudgel to be like, oh well, look how they, it's a patriarchal culture, or Islam is this, that, and the other. So if you're critical of Israel, you're then somehow supporting all these various accusations. And also, of course, how people there's obviously a lot of women involved in the resistance movement, like directly, but also in support of it. So how they that those women really problematize this kind of notion of this kind of unfree, hapless, extremely oppressed, controlled, quote unquote, Muslim woman. And so it got me thinking about not only Aayan Hirshi Ali, who is work about how, again, she obviously is no fan of Islam and very much seems to think that women need to be maybe sometimes rescued from it, but it needs like a total reformation. There has to be like a total Protestant reformation of or something similar to that, because it's just, she has, she very much, at least my understanding, I haven't read every word of her book. I did read Infidel back when I was in grad school in Amsterdam. Because she had moved to Holland and she has Dutch citizenship, and so there's this whole thing going on about a documentary that she did with a person that was kind of like trying to out how terrible it is to be a woman in Somalia and other Muslim-dominated countries. And so it was this whole thing. And so I thought, who is this lady? And so I read the book, and it's a very compelling, let's say, maybe elaborated biography. But also, I was thinking about, in terms of just how women are portrayed. Let me see if I can find what I want here. Oh, sorry. Clearly, I didn't. I didn't. Sorry, I didn't order my slides properly. Oh my God! What did I do? Oh, here we go. Oh my God. Okay. So I was thinking, just also because of the TERF perf thing, and for people not familiar with these acronyms, TERF means technically means trans exclusionary radical feminists. So it's basically a word for people who know that that sex is real and matters, and that no one actually can transition from male to female or vice versa, or out of the sex binary, and that keeping and biological reality is key for safeguarding women and children's rights. and protections, and then perf, which was the name. I think I might have coined it. I don't know. I just changed one letter, so it's not like it was a great invention, to Palestinian exclusionary radical feminists, because a lot of people who are TERFs, or who have, and we've that initially was a slur, but people embraced it. They're like, fine, we're TERFs, whatever. You know, really became just. They just sound like, you know, like they were paid IDF spokespeople practically. It just like very much, I guess for lack of a better word, I didn't realize that there were so many Zionist TERFs. Anyway, so I was thinking that, so in the context of this is that so either there's no concern shown for Palestinian women alone, let alone their kids, husbands, fathers, etc., or you have this kind of people who want to embark on some sort of moral crusade to save them. And not just Palestinian women, but all Middle Eastern, North African women, from whatever, from their culture, from their men, from Islam, from whatever. And that's what made me think about Lila's work, because it'd been quite a while before I was thinking about this. I think the last time was when the whole burqa ban uproar was going on. I can't remember when that was. Anyway, I just want to I'll just show 2 more slides, and then I want to get your guys' initial just kind of reaction or thoughts on this topic before we get into, for lack of a better word, Lila versus Aayan Hirshi Ali on how they would understand and respond to this question and who they'd be pointing the finger at. So I also thought, and this comes to this isn't my original thought, unfortunately. This probably comes from reading Lila's works and others. And I was thinking, why do liberals, feminists, postmodernists, whatever, code transgression, opposition, or queering of a norm to be to be something? It's an adjacent act. So someone who's making a choice, they're empowered. That's agency, and that's great. But they code the opposite behavior as various forms of internalized oppression. So if you're transgressing or opposing or queering something, you're empowered, you're your own woman, you're making free choices. But if you don't do that, then somehow you don't have free choice. And I think this binary, although they don't like binaries, I think is quite prevalent. And I'll just kind of stop there for a second to see if there's anything, Anna, you want to chime in about in terms of this question of Muslim women need to be saved, and if so, from what?
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I mean,
You
first of all, I
pass.
feel slightly awkward. No, I do. Obviously, I'm not a Muslim woman, so I really don't want to be some obnoxious idiot who's got lots of opinions on Muslim women. I've got lots of Muslim women friends, and I did. You lost me. And I lived in Malaysia for a while, and had a lot of women friends who were practicing. Am I going off quite a lot? Or,
yeah, you're going in and out a bit.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll just move my phone a bit. Yeah, I lived in Malaysia, and I had quite a lot of friends that were Muslims, Muslim women, and some of them wore the it was called the tudong in Malaysia. Some of them had, wore just a headscarf. Some of them didn't wear anything. They're all professional women. So from my perspective, most of them, like all the Muslim women that I know, are people that have jobs and are professional women. So I don't know, it's just really hard to kind of, I don't see or identify with a lot of what seems to be coming out right now, which is this sort of idea of like these totally victim kind of, these women that have no agency. They're absolutely subjugated by men. But I'm not saying that doesn't happen in the religion. Maybe it does, but just from my perspective, it's nobody that I've ever known has ever been like that. So that's my first point.
Look, we have a comment, ladies, from the YouTube. Beanie says, excellent and pertinent topic and great panel. Yes, isn't that a lovely panel? We are. Oh, and I didn't even think about this when I put on this this shirt, that it matches the cathedral.
It does.
And you got the black going on there. So I mean, we think about everything here on the Morbid Symptoms podcast. Okay, Artless, do you wanna weigh in before we get further into the meat of the matter?
Yeah, just to say, yeah, like, I mean, we have this tendency in the West to infantilize things we don't relate to in order to sort of fit our own perspective or our own familiar experiences of this. And I'd say the narrative of Muslim women is, follows that pattern as well. Just this isn't necessarily a Muslim woman example, but I mean, I think a great example of it was when Tony Blair and was it George Bush got it in their head. Oh no, it wasn't. It was Obama got it in his head that he wanted to go off and liberate Libya.
God.
And we all saw how well that went. It's like, yeah, we're gonna give them democracy. Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi's this twit. He's oppressing his people. He's doing blah blah blah. And I seem to remember really vividly, like, on the verge of the invasion, where, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Gaddafi was the person who needed to go, but his son gave this speech in front of the cameras where he was sort of like, look, they're coming in saying they're liberators, but what they're coming to do is ruin the country. And I think, I'm not sure we can do that, right? And I think and I'm not Muslim myself, but I would say we tend to remove agency from a lot of actors that we don't understand. We don't listen to their perspective. We don't listen to what they want. We're imposing our version of what we think our freedoms are onto other people's, and that's, be it anybody who's non-Western. There's no grace or understanding for their way of life and how it fits in within that cultural landscape. And so often, women obviously always being, our voices are always, marginalized and always set aside. We often fall victim to this, whether you're Muslim or whether you're not, but especially so in a Western climate.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Beanie, for the comment. I'm always so excited when I get a notification that someone is, and then I look and it's not a troll. That's always nice because that can happen as well. And so any troll, I don't put troll things on there. It's just like whatever. Anyway. Okay. So let's see. Back to this. So yeah. So and oh yeah. So here's another hapless woman. It's a lady in full. I mean, she put on every Palestinian garment she could. Well, of course, she's in Palestine, so in a way, everything's a Palestinian garment, but like traditional dress. And she's waving a flag. And of course, you can see in the background there's a whole bunch of IDF soldiers. So I just like to. It's always nice that pictures can convey a lot. Anyway, so I put this poll out. And I'm not showing how many people responded because, in the world of fake news and Zionist charts and whatnot, you don't need, you just put out the information you want. Yeah, you can hide anything that's problematic. So if you want to find out how many people have responded to my poll, you'll have to you'll have to go to my Twitter account and find out. But anyway, so I asked, who or what do Muslim women need saving from most? And at this time, I wanted to do something just kind of a live stream, us watching the recent area. I'm going to call her AHI. No, Aayan Hirshi Ali and Richard Dawkins. And so I asked this, and we see that 16.7% said they're men. Same for Islam. 10% said culture. But the majority of the people who responded to this unscientific, poll on Twitter was that they need to be saved from Western liberals and feminists. And I have to say, of the 4 options on that list, that is the one I would have ticked as well. However, it's a bit of I will admit it was a bit of a trick question, because the actual answer is they don't need to be saved from us us Western liberals or feminists or conservatives or whoever. But I just or at least that was my thing. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. Are you surprised by this unscientific Twitter poll?
No, I voted in it.
I'm surprised.
So do you want to know what I voted?
No, you don't have
Well,
to
I
tell me.
voted
I couldn't vote for myself,
okay.
but I was like, yeah. Although I have a morbid symptoms. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. So I voted for the last one because I thought right now it was kind of apt.
Yeah.
All the obnoxious Western liberal feminists, so-called
Yeah,
feminists.
yeah. The perfs are not your friend, unless
No.
you're a Zionist or a white nationalist. Apparently, then
Exactly.
then they
They're
love
lovely.
you.
Mm.
Some of them, allegedly, some. Well, we know who we're talking about. We're not gonna get in the dirt though
No,
today.
no,
All right. So yeah, so that's just some background. What else do I have? Okay, I don't want to know how. Sorry. Remove. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna share a Lila Abu. How do you say her last name? Lughod. It's
I don't know.
Lughod. She's Palestinian. Or at least one of her parents is Palestinian. Maybe
I
one
don't
was
know.
Egyptian. Anyway, I'm just gonna call her Lila, not because I want to be disrespectful of her. She's an esteemed professor. I'm just gonna call her Lila.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna share the screen, and we're gonna watch two clips, not the whole thing. We're not gonna watch the whole hour lecture, although I would encourage people to do so. But just two clips that really encapsulate what I think. At least are two ways of looking at this issue that were new to me, and also, so I'm assuming, might be ways that other people wouldn't maybe haven't thought about it before. So it was really illuminating, which doesn't mean you're going to agree with her her interpretation, but just the question, the way of framing it, I thought was really, really interesting. So I want to share that. Oh, we have another comment. So, Yellow
I can't read
Zello.
it
I have
from
to
here,
run.
so
Okay, I'll read it. So Yellow Zello says, I have to run to work. Great topic. As a Muslim woman who became a Muslim over 20 years ago, nothing worse than Western libs and feminists. Looking forward to watching the end. Well, so yeah, people. So you can decide for yourself, viewers, to what extent Western liberals and feminists are doing quote unquote Muslim women. And of course, that's in itself is an abstraction, because there's many different. They're not a monolith. There's a lot of diversity there and internal contradictions. But so there we go. So far we're in consensus of thinking that maybe those who think they're the most good and concerned about these women maybe need to think about the fact that the women themselves, at least some of them, do not experience it as such. So anyway, let me get to Lila, and hopefully this works and people can hear it. If not, we'll just have to go to Plan B. I can wing what her main argument was. So, let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, let's see if this works. There she is. Share. Okay, and then now I need to go to. Oh, good Lord. What is it? Oh, to the 2-minute mark. So let's see if I can get that to there. Okay.
I'll just start with this. That in January 2014, just as I was leaving for Egypt to go visit the village that I've been working in for the last 20 years or so, the Pew Foundation reported on an opinion survey that had been
Can you guys hear her?
by a University of Michigan researcher in various Muslim
I
countries.
can't actually. It's really low.
Form of dress for women in public.
Oh, hold on.
Women's dress, and a majority of the, you can still see, right? Yeah, a majority of respondents had selected from a set of these cartoon images, the one of a woman wearing a headscarf or hijab, and the only countries in which a majority had selected women with their hair showing were Turkey and Lebanon. And then January 2014.
I turned it up, but I also turned on the subtitles, so I'm going to start over.
Village that I've been working in for the last 20 years or
so.
I
saw that. Okay.
Pew Foundation reported on an opinion survey that had been conducted by a University of Michigan researcher in various Muslim countries about what was the most appropriate form of dress for women in public and women's dress. And a majority of the, you can still see, right? Yeah, a majority of respondents had selected from a set of these cartoon images, the one of a woman wearing a headscarf or hijab. And the only countries in which a majority had selected women with their hair showing were Turkey and Lebanon. So was the significance of these choices supposed to be self-evident? I asked. So the next day, a Lebanese satirist, who I love to follow, tweeted a mock version of the poll under the headline, let me try to get you that one. Yeah. An Arab university ran this fascinating poll about what is most appropriate for American women to wear in public. And the survey purported to compare the votes of people in different US states for a range of images. And they had to choose from a blonde cheerleader, cowgirl, and these people in funny hats, a Statue of Liberty, and allegedly 44% selected the woman in the revealing dress whose hat was covered with dollar signs. So the point of the satire, of course, was to expose the absurdity of this obsession with women's dress. And to sort of uncover, to use that, some of what lay behind it, which are anxieties in the West, about the hijab, Islam, various forms of covering that are linked to very deadly fantasies about freedom and choice, I think. And a graph reproduced in the same Pew report exposes this assumption perfectly. Should women be able to choose their own clothing? This is the real survey, not the mock one. It's absurd too. But the graph shows that in various Muslim majority countries, how they responded to this question. And a large proportion agreed that women should be able to choose what they wore. And if you read in the article, the findings puzzle the researchers, because the idea that women should choose what they wear came not just from Tunisia, Lebanon, and Turkey, where they don't cover their hair, and didn't think that was the most appropriate, but from Saudi Arabia, where they do, which are on the other end of the extreme of covering. So where the majority of people had thought the most appropriate form of dress was the face veil. So the framing of the study, I think, reveals common views in Europe and the United States that veiling is somehow connected to questions of choice and freedom. The researcher sort of said these forms of dress were, for him, representative of certain values, going from the extreme of conservatism, fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism, the most covered, to secularism, modernity, freedom, aligned with the last one. So the debates about banning in Europe, about banning headscarves or face veils, which I'm sure you all know about, and last summer the to-do about the so-called burkini on French beaches, alongside general worries about Muslims and the hijab in North America that we see intensifying all around us now, all turn on this question of choice. Are Muslim women veiling out of choice? Or is this form of dress a dark sign of coercion by patriarchal men, by patriarchal religions, by patriarchal authoritarian states? Should women be allowed to choose what they wear? Or do states that want to protect certain values and individual freedom, secular values, or the security of others, have the right to tell women what they can and cannot wear, what they should? Can they legislate what they wear? Are liberal protections of freedom of religion relevant to what women wear, or do threats of certain civilizational values, I'm full of puns, trump some groups' rights to express themselves, or some women's rights to wear whatever they want? So the value of freely choosing, which I used in my title, my new title, is enshrined in the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW, as it's known, often known as the Women's Bill of Rights. And different articles guarantee women's equal rights to choose freely their professions and their partners. And these ideals rest on a confidence that we can know what a free choice is. The rest, they rest on the conviction that freedom to choose is the ultimate good. But I want to trouble today with you the idea that we can know when a choice is freely made, who gets to determine whether an act or a form of dress was freely chosen or not, and is there a pattern to whose choices are more likely to be perceived as free. So political theorists, I'm sure you know, like Nicholas Rose and Wendy Brown, have had a lot to say about choice and the heavy ideological politics of freedom. And in a wonderful analysis of secular discourse as it emerged in the heated European debates about burqas or face coverings, Wendy Brown, for example, pointed out the strange double standard at work in talk about women. We seem to have very tolerant views of Western women's desires for debilitating shoes, expensive clothes, cosmetics, costly plastic surgery, while we have intolerant views of Muslim women's clothing. The former understood as, of course, arising from individual women's free choice. And she comments, and this is a long quote, apologies, I won't do this again, but we need Wendy Brown, political theorist here. It's such a brilliant article. So, quote, to sustain the conviction that Western women choose their attire while Islamic women are coerced into theirs requires ignoring one, how conditions of choice are organized and how choice itself is normatively produced. Two, how subjects can be dominated through choice, a concern that stretches from Plato to Mill, Marcuse to Foucault. Marcuse, excuse me. And three, how subjects can choose against their freedom or equality, an argument for which we can draw on Hobbes, Dostoevsky, Freud, and not only the Marquis de Sade. And four, above all, the idea that Western women choose while Islamic women are coerced ignores the extent to which all choice is conditioned by, as well as imbricated with power, and the extent to which choice itself is an impoverished account of freedom, especially political freedom. So I'm an anthropologist. I'm not a political theorist, so that's the last you'll hear of political.
Okay, so before I weigh in on why I shared this particular section, do either of you want to comment or say anything about the argument she's making, and particularly about the focus on choice and free choice in women's clothing?
I think it's really fascinating. I just really quickly want to go and put my phone on charge. So I'm just going to turn my camera off for about a minute.
Do it.
Otherwise we'll see me running into the other.
Artless and I will pull down
back
before Anna.
Okay, I'll be back in about 30 seconds. Hang on.
Cool. All right. Artless, do you have any initial comments?
Yeah, I thought that was a really fascinating speech. I think when she was talking, I sort of thought about, I'm a millennial, right? And I came of age in the era after 9/11, so to speak, right? Where you're living in a really hyper Islamophobic environment where any visible expression of Islam is seen as very suspect, right? So that includes whether it's hijab, whether it's the niqab, like any sort of thing. And I was always battling with that idea of what I was being told in the media of to see the hijab as a symbol of terror, and then trying to weigh that on with my own experience. So certainly in the part of Africa that I live, I've grown up with Muslims. I went to school with them. I studied with them. Some of them are my closest friends. And obviously we didn't have incidences of terrorism from the Muslim communities in my country or even other countries that I've lived in. So I was always battling with that whole idea of, oh, well, I've always known this person is wearing a hijab. It's not an issue. It's not a thing. And then sort of having to face this whole idea of, oh, sorry, you're saying this person wearing a hijab that could possibly be a threat to me. What does that mean? How does that weigh in with my own experience? So, and I did go through this period of time, I think, where I was wary of it. Maybe I bought into the concept of it. So, but that was always fighting with my idea of tyranny and being told what to do and being told what to wear. So I always used to battle with that, that experience of, oh, well, this could be an issue, but really, do we have a right to tell women what to wear? Such a thing, and is our alternative walking around in a, you know, a belt, for want of a better word, the better choice? You know what I mean? Because that brings its own experience, especially as a Black woman, of hypersexualization. So yeah, it was one of those really. So just hearing her just touch on it just brings back those conflicted ideas. I'm still trying to work out the balance. I mean, right now I'm just do you wear what you want, whatever works for you. Take it back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I don't have a straight answer for it.
No, it's okay. I mean, and again, I should
weighing
say
it
for my panelists, and they're also my friends now. We're friends. And the viewers is that we are, no one here is saying that we have the answer or the one right way of thinking through these issues. It's just about, you know, trying to grapple with them, thinking about it, especially not so much on the object. So the quote unquote Muslim women, which becomes an abstraction and kind of people can project anything they want on that. But in terms of like what you were mentioning, what she was mentioning, I mean, just the fact that most people would read it, I would assume most people, if they saw a poll like that, let's say in the Washington Post or the Times of London, saying, what's the most appropriate way for a woman to dress? In these countries, you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. You wouldn't think like, what a ridiculous question that is. And when she mentioned the satirist who then said, you know, what the different states think what the best way for a woman in America to dress is, and if people saw that, then you see the juxtaposition. You're like, yeah, why does this kind of treatment, this kind of questioning, this kind of weird concern for how Muslim women dress or not is this like, yeah, because that's what a good, well, you don't have to be an academic to do this, but just somebody to look at something in a different way to be like, yeah, that's what's up with that. That's, it's kind of crazy. Anyway, Anna, did you have anything you wanted to say about that initial?
Yeah, I was really interested in the idea of how, well, there were two things actually. One of them was the things that Western women sort of do, the things that we take for granted, like wearing stupid, uncomfortable shoes, or all the things that are assumed to be like very empowering, and
cutting breasts off and
well, exactly, yeah, cosmetic surgery,
or
and
getting them huge, or
supposedly very empowering choices that we make. And how, because we're sort of westernized, it means therefore they're good choices, or they're the approved. And for Muslim women, perhaps the choice to wear a veil or not wear a veil, or to wear a headscarf, or anything, is always sort of wrong somehow, and like we don't believe it. We don't believe that it's a choice. We totally believe it's imposed. I thought that was kind of interesting. As I remember, like a very good friend of mine is Saudi, and I asked him about some of his sister-in-laws, who some of them are Saudi and some of them are Lebanese, but and some of them like wear a veil when they go out, and some of them don't. And I said, why does she wear the veil? And he said, oh, she just feels more comfortable with it. And it's so odd that quite often I think in the West we just can't accept that. We just think, no, that's absolutely impossible that she can possibly feel comfortable in it, because we feel that it's not her choice. So it's all, I just feel like we're always projecting our choices, like, would I wear one or would I not wear one? We just cannot, like Artless was saying, I don't think we just cannot give anyone else any sort of sense of like the choices that they make are their choices. It's always, they're not because they're oppressed in some way, because that's what we think.
Yeah, it becomes a suspect choice. Yeah,
yes,
so it's
exactly.
like, and that's why I paraphrased that tweet of mine when I paraphrased Lila. It's like, choosing to wear a hijab is also a choice. Choosing not to is a choice, and then of course the context of that choice. Yeah, I mean, there's different to really understand that, or to even, of course, we could be projecting on stuff to people, and you could talk to them, be like, why you guys even care about this? It's just, whatever. but yeah, I think, and also the fact that we're so we tend to think that our choices are free. Like, what does it mean to say that a choice is free, and how do you know? Like, do I like to wear makeup? Is that a free choice? If I had grown up in a different area, would I see it quite differently?
You think you should?
Yeah. I'll say I have to put my face paint on. I don't want to, scare the natives. Why do I say that? Of course, I'm bright white, so I would like, you wouldn't even be able to see me if I didn't put anything on. I'd blend into the walls in the background. But yeah, and I thought that it was, I just really, and before we go on, I wanted to, let's see what Beanie has to say. We have more comments, ladies. Isn't this exciting? I like when the comments come in. The absurdity of, so Beanie says, the absurdity of intrinsically linking aesthetics and dress to freedom is really interesting. And if dress is indicative of values, what can be deduced from certain types of Western dress? And I think that you touched upon this, and she did as well. So we could look at, I'll just pick somebody, Lady Gaga. Okay. And you think about how, and of course, I'm assuming that she's not dressed like that all the time, but it's not like she could run freely down the street in those heels. I mean, she's also constrained by the clothes that she wears, more so than a veil. I mean, so I think, and I don't know if people are fully covered. You don't know what they have underneath. It could be a loose skirt. It could be tight jeans. I mean, who knows? But it's this idea that somehow, especially when you look at like kind of the high fashion or the kind of whatever, and even like some of this stuff is like, borderline S&M type of fashion. And it's like, and it's this idea like, well, if something's revealing, again, it's this idea, if something's revealing, if it's transgressive in any way, it's a free choice. Or somehow it's something, there's more gravity to those types of choices than someone who would choose not to, or who doesn't, who dresses more modestly, or or whatever. So I think that's, I just really think that, that's why I really like her work, because I was kind of dismissive, like, I'm so sick of people talking about the veil. Like, if they want, it's their business. If they want to wear it, let them wear it. I never really approached it the way she's doing, to kind of tease out, what does this mean? This has become such an issue, and the framing of it, and this idea that somehow that you can somehow map, or we think not we, I mean like the royal we, so whoever would think that you can map how modern a society is by how the women dress. So the more conservative the dress, the more maybe even anti-modern or pre-modern or whatever you want to call them, whatever the word is, developing, backwards, fundamental, whatever the word is. And the more revealing the dress, somehow the more free the society and the women are. It's a weird kind of, it's also kind of capitalist and sexual revolution, kind of this idea that choice, selection, commodities, all this stuff. But I don't want to get too far off track. But I really thought it was a really interesting way of getting at that. Go ahead, please say something, Artless. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was gonna say, having said all that, I don't think we should ignore the fact that there are areas where sometimes, obviously, it's not a choice for some Muslim women. Using what's going on in Iran as an example, I think it's such a tricky area, because you're trying to balance that awareness of the fact that, look, some people it's not a choice. Not some people. Let's talk about this pretty directly. For some women, it's not a choice. We already live as women, whether you're Muslim or not, in a world, unfortunately, no matter what they tell you, of limited choices. And when you're a woman, your choices are they're shrunk even smaller. Okay, and so I don't know that everyone who comes at this is coming at it necessarily in a bad faith or patronizing manner. But yes, we do view this primarily through one-dimensional situation. And the honest truth is, when you're not really from those communities, how well do you understand what lures someone into wearing a veil? Do you see what I mean? talking of anecdotes, I think I mentioned to you, Tara, yesterday that, you know, I was working with this young lady, and I'll tell two stories on each side. So when I first came to London, I went to this school where there's, you know, I had quite a few young ladies from the Middle East who went to school with me and stuff, and the drivers would come and drop them at school, and they'd be wearing the full, you know, hijab and shebang and everything else. And as soon as like the driver dropped them off it would come, and off it would come off, and you know, they'd be like that throughout the rest of the day until they were ready to go back to school, right? Go back home. And then, you know, fast forward a couple of years later, I started working with this girl who's half Somali and half Yemeni. And she was, when I tell you, she's literally one of the brightest people I've ever worked with. Like, really switched on, really cool, like sharp, outspoken, just, you know. And yet she decided to wear the veil, and I didn't understand it. I was like, so I asked her, I was like, oh, you know, like, because thankfully we'd kind of built up that kind of relationship where we could have those kind of conversations where it's like, you know, what's the deal? And she's like, and I noticed, by the way, that because we would hang out sometimes socially outside of work, and I met a few of her friends who were, again, also really switched on, really bright, really sort of, you know, we'd have lots of really interesting conversations about the state of the world. And she told me that she started wearing the veil after 9/11. Well, the veil was just a hijab, so she was just wearing the hijab. But and she said she wore it as a symbol of resistance, as a way of tying it in with her own identity, because she was being made to feel ashamed of her Muslim identity, and she wanted to acknowledge that. So that was really the first time I'd had the opportunity to look at it from another lens, really. In the part of Africa that I live in, a lot of women wear the veil, but it's so brightly patterned and it's so in tune with the culture, and they always draw from the cultural dress itself, that it doesn't feel inherently Muslim. It almost feels cultural rather than Muslim. I don't know how to explain it, but
cultural rather than religious or something.
A lot of people in the part of Africa. Yeah, because a lot of people in Africa tend to put a headscarf around their head. I do it a lot while I'm here anyway. Sometimes I might wear a headscarf. Sometimes I don't. Like, you know, it's nothing to do with being religious. It's just, hey, I want to throw on a headscarf. Okay, cool. I want to wear a turban. Cool.
It's an accessory, you know I mean? Maybe you're just like, I don't want to deal with my hair today. I'm just gonna.
Yes, it is.
Or it's it's an accessory.
It is. Yeah. And so this is what I mean by sometimes we don't look at things through a cultural. We don't look at it through a multi-dimensional lens. We look at it just solely through one lens, and it's really important to examine it holistically, I think. Yeah. Just wanted to throw that in. And this is what I mean by it's such a tricky subject, and you're always torn because I'm conscious that there are different perspectives here.
No, for sure. Do you have something do you want to add before I share my an anecdote or two of mine, Anna?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I lived in Malaysia, there was sort of various degrees of kind of wearing, you know, headscarves or the tudung and the kabaya. And they were really colorful. I mean, it was amazing. They weren't sort of black. Like most of the Malay women that did wear them wore these incredible colorful tudungs and these really floral, crazy dresses. And it seemed very much part of the culture. And I guess, you know, before that, they would have worn slightly different kind of colorful sarongs and colorful nyonya tops. So it was just a sort of slightly different progression. And then there were other women that I don't think were Malay. They were possibly Arab women. I remember seeing it at the same sort of time, and they did wear all black. And I think when I was younger, I guess I used to always look at it in this, I guess, you know, the society that you're brought up in the West. Again, you always think if women are wearing something that you wouldn't wear, and you've sort of been conditioned to believe that they've been forced to wear it, you know, by the men. Which maybe they have, I don't know, but I'm just saying this is, you know, how you get kind of taught to think. You sort of think, oh, it's so awful. And I just always remember looking at them thinking, and particularly when there was a man next to them wearing his jeans and a t-shirt, and I just think, why are you wearing that? And why is he not? And like, why have you just been for? I don't know, like you just always look at it through that Western lens, don't you? You just can't help it. Which I think is not great, you know. And again, who does it maybe they're quite happy wearing it, or maybe they're not. But it's just I don't know. There's just no answer in a funny way, is there? Because unless you ask.
And also the idea that our opinion. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Artless.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just think that, Anna, it's that automatic assumption that we tend to
Yeah.
think without getting an idea of context or nuance or thing. It's like we just bang in with the opinion, and it's like,
Yeah,
well, hang on,
exactly.
there might be a different story here.
Yeah. But we're
Well,
not
also-
conditioned like that, are we? We're just told to
It's
look
like a
at it in a
know-it-all
certain way.
Well, and I just of course, and the idea that somehow our feelings about their dress matters at all in their world. I mean,
Totally. I know.
I mean, literally over there, like people like in your if I was going to school with them and my friends and whatnot, okay, that's a different. Then you might have you would hope that you would, if it was a concern or curiosity, you would ask about. But somehow that my ideas about whether it be women in Iran or Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia or God or any place, like my how I feel about their clothing choice is is interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to know, because we think that a lot of the things that like our initial, especially if it's a real time or like a spontaneous response, we think that it's something sui generis that was like born in us. We don't realize that from the moment we're born, all the stuff we're taking in, that you get used to, just kind of, there's the background framing that you don't even realize is there at a certain point, until something happens and you're kind of like, oh, that's interesting, because I too would have when I was younger would thought the same thing. And did you have another anecdote, or did you I can share mine from Gaza in India.
But my only other funny anecdote is
just
my
add
best
one-
mate. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, so should we let Anna finish and then go back to
no,
Artless?
sorry, no, don't worry. No, it's only a very.
let Anna go.
It's not
Okay,
that.
Anna,
it's not-
Artless,
it's not
and then
that
me.
amazing. No,
We're going
best-
counterclockwise. So.
Okay, like that. Yeah, my best mate's a journalist, and she's Iranian, and she spent quite a lot of time in Iran writing this book that was published, and obviously, the women, she had to wear a scarf, not a veil or anything, but a scarf over her head. And she just said all the Iranian women who are really gorgeous and they just have amazing makeup, and they always have their sort of scarf sort of falling off their heads a bit to reveal their hair, and then they're always getting told to sort of push them forwards all the time. But I just thought that was quite weird, that you kind of they all just lived with it, they kind of took the piss out of it and thought it was stupid, but they just always had their kind of little bits of hair showing and like their beautiful makeup, and they kind of they made it work in some sort of mad way.
Yeah,
but that was it. That was my anecdote.
Well, and all the things, if you're not there, you don't know how to read those cultural cues, until you're there for a while. And I just was thinking about, I had a friend, Alia, I'll just call her Alia. I'm not, when I was teaching at an American International School in Gaza between 2002 and 2004, I met all kinds of people, and the spectrum there was women who didn't cover at all, and that was fine, and there was women who completely covered. The majority would wear the hijab when they were out, but there was a minority that was the burqa, I guess you call it, the whole, I think it's called the burqa, so veiled, and the black, the eyes and everything else was black, and you didn't know what they had underneath, so you saw eyes and like sandals or cha-cha shoes. But most women would wear just a hijab when they're out in public, and then there was probably maybe like 25% that didn't cover at all. I mean, it's a loose thing, because they're also it's a Muslim majority place, but there are a fairly sizable Christian Palestinian community, and they don't. Yeah, they wouldn't cover. But I remember I had a couple of friends who were feminists. I had two feminist Palestinian friends, maybe more, but these were women who were like really like out in front with their feminism. Like, it was part of their I guess we'd say in the parlance of our times, identity. And one of them, they had the most opposite feelings you could imagine about Islam and the veil or the scarf. And I remember listening to this conversation between them one night. We were hanging out. I can't remember even where it was. and the one who covers and is the more religious is like, look, yeah, I'm not going to make a rational argument or logical argument about everything that's in the Quran and I take your point, but she's like, I can't for me, I can't take a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. So do I believe everything that's in the holy book? Do I take every interpretation as that? Or do I just kind of act as if I do? Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I don't. It's like she basically like I'm she was quite aware of the gender relation issues and this type of stuff, and not just in Palestine, but more broadly. But she's like, look, yeah, I don't dispute that, but the only way I can try to explain is that it's like when my faith and my family culture is the dominant switch that's on, then I push that stuff is just kind of marginalized. I'm not, giving a feminist speech or interpretation all the time. And the other woman was, because they shared they had a lot of similar assessments, but their views on that. And she was like, she was Muslim, but I mean, practicing. But she was very much like, for foremost, she wasn't going to wear the hijab, and she had like a very different idea about that. And I just mentioned because even, so these are two women, both Muslims, Palestinian, feminist, highly educated, very different ideas about, wearing wearing the veil, not the veil, but the hijab, and it was really fascinating to me. And I thought, gosh, this is, and again, it just shows that, and these are just two women. So you can imagine I'm sure there's all kinds of things going on. Also, I wanted to mention before we go on to the next part of Lila's, the next segment, about pulp non-fiction and Aayan Hirshi Ali's work, is oh crap! Now I lost my train of thought. Oh well, it doesn't matter. It will come back to me. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Anybody want to say anything before we transition to the next section?
There is something I was sort of thinking of when you were talking. So it's sort of interesting that because it's not in a religious environment, I think this is another reason that Western liberal feminists, or whoever, I don't know what you want to call them, but seem to sort of take a lot of issue with Muslim women wearing that kind of clothing and in the world, as opposed to kind of in the confines of the mosque or whatever. It's quite strange because I'm like a Bulgarian Orthodox. I wouldn't call myself religious, but it's my cultural background. I'm Bulgarian and a Christian. But
I'm gonna have to stop you there for a second, because I know a Greek Orthodox and like Russian Orthodox is the same type of thing.
It's all the same. Sorry. Yeah. Well, it is all the same. And I grew up in London, and I used to go to the Russian Orthodox Church, which was in a certain era, it was quite different. But then from the 90s, there was this huge influx of Russians, as opposed to the ones that had been there from a long time before, and a lot of them were converts. And they all started wearing veils, like sort of headscarves in the church. And because Bulgarians don't do it, I sort of held out quite a lot in a really perverse, stubborn way. And I was like, I'm not Russian, so I'm not going to do this. But everybody did. And then I wasn't allowed in at one point to one of the churches until I put one on my head and went in. And I just thought, yeah, why am I being such an idiot? Because, who cares? But it was quite strange. But no one seems to have a real problem, apart from me, obviously, but with people doing it in a religious environment, if it's, no problem. And yet when it's Muslim women, there just seems to be this, a lot of opinions about why they're doing it. Do they want to? Should they? Shouldn't they? Which is just, I just find quite strange, actually, now thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's that the thing that we're rarely in our regular daily existence encouraged or invited to think about things in this way. I think is, and of course, people are busy. You can't crack every nut. Part of the expression. And I just remembered what I wanted to say. My God, had a wild night last night. Anyway, is that another thing in Gaza, and I'm quite sure this is not just in Gaza. I also saw this in India. who I think they have like, was it 200 million Muslims live in India? I think around 200 million they're over 1 billion population. I think it's about 200 million. Anyway, I don't know. I'm throwing out that
No,
factoid.
hang on, that can't. Can that be right?
Yeah, it's 200 million.
Is it 200
Approximately,
million?
I think.
Really?
Anyway,
Wow.
I'll look it up. I think that it's 77% Hindu, I think. Or maybe is it 80%?
I'm sure
Anyway.
they're only 46. Wait a minute. How many millions of Muslims are there in the world? I thought it was only like 46 million. Am I completely
No,
wrong?
it's like 1.2 billion.
Is
or
it?
1.1,
Oh,
yeah,
right. I'm
1.6.
completely wrong. Sorry, my figures
Yeah.
are completely
Well,
wrong.
this
Right.
is what's on Google. I don't know. I didn't count
Okay,
everybody.
yeah.
So that's just, you
Okay, I don't know.
we kind of
I'm wrong.
who knows? It's like, oh, look, this is on Google. So, but yeah, about 1.6, 1.8. I don't know. Anyway.
Right. Okay. Oh, wow.
Anyway, so I'm pretty sure it's close. I think it's around 200 million
Right,
Muslims
okay.
in India. I think.
Yeah.
I'll Google it later if I'm wrong. Or yeah, whatever. It's around that. It's the largest minority after Hindus. It's the largest religious minority in India. Anyway, I want to bring up the generational thing because it's not only young women who are rebelling, like because you mentioned and I've seen that as well, that when they're younger, if they're dropped off at school, they're very prim and proper, or probably dressed, and then they'll go into the bathroom and they do some changes, or if they're going to go out with their friends, they'll have change of clothes in the bag, and then they have to do it again, and before they go home. But there's also the other way that sometimes you have families where the mother doesn't cover and the daughter wants to. So it can go the other way around, that it's not only that it's the younger generation that's trying to lift the veil, for lack of a better word, or to not not want to cover, but sometimes they'll go the opposite way and they get really compared to the mom, really conservative. Go ahead, Artless.
No, sorry, I'm just gonna leave you guys for like 5 minutes. I'll be back, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Your turn now.
Don't leave us, Artless. No, it's okay. You can go. We'll hold down the fort. I'll wait for you to get back and then we'll do the other clip of the Lila thing about the Pulp Non-Fiction. I think you'll really enjoy that one. I did.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we'll wait for you for that.
All right.
Okay. Because we have some more comments to read.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that was interesting. I think most people would assume, and I would have assumed, that it's a generational thing. So the younger generation is going to, there's this idea we have, and it's also probably a crap one, that over time things get more loose, more progressive,
more
and so
liberal.
it's yeah. Whereas not necessarily. You have some Muslim women who go the opposite, who don't go the direction that their mom or maybe some of their sisters or aunts went in, and so that's another thing to that kind of problematizes the whole, let's say, narrative, that overused word.
I mean, one of my friends in Malaysia, she doesn't wear the veil, and her mother does, and I think some of her nieces do, but some of her cousins don't. And it's the tudong, because it's slightly different in Malaysia anyway. But anyway, yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, the whole family. Oh, sorry, my daughter's texting me something really annoying.
Okay, no.
I keep on trying to flick it off the screen. No way.
I thought maybe there was like a rogue bee or something.
No, it's like, oh goodness, she's like,
it's all right. Do it. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, it's so annoying.
We're loose here.
Off my phone, I've got text binging the whole time. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was just quite interesting that she doesn't and her mother does, but some of her the younger generation do, and it's, what does it matter? It doesn't matter, does it? I don't know why we're so obsessed with what Muslim women wear on their heads.
Well, I was thinking I should have put that tweet that I think it was yours. I think you tweeted it, or it might have been Moz. But that thing it was from Tony Robinson, and there's this thing, and there's this really blonde, blue-eyed British girl.
Yeah, I think we all tweeted that out, didn't we? That awful AI generated rubbish. I know.
Yeah. Anyway, this tweet from Tommy Robinson is, and if you're in the UK, you probably have heard of him. He's known for being, what is he, like a white nationalist? He's or British, I don't know,
Pretty
whatever.
much. I don't know what he
yeah.
called himself.
Yeah.
Patriots, probably, but anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's this. Anyway, he tweeted out this thing about, and so in the background, it's all these Muslim girls, and they're covered.
Yeah.
And then in the front, there's this really sad-looking, blonde, blue-eyed British girl with like the British flag on, who looks very much like she's, I don't know. It was like the girls in the background didn't look like menacing, but it looked like basically like that she was now a minority. I think the subtext
that was the gist
she's now a minority in Britain.
Yeah.
And again, this whole thing, and the only way, and the code, of course, is the scarf.
Yeah. That's right. That symbolizes everything. There's it's really become this horrible way of, I don't know, like, and it works. I think it's sort of becoming hardwired with people now, isn't it? That you see a woman or a girl wearing, the tudong, I call it because of Malaysia, but the hijab or whatever, and you immediately panic. I mean, not that we do, but I think people are. They're beginning to sort of flip out about it. It's
well, you think it's yeah, like it's a sign of the
doom, impending.
Or what's the word of the great replacement, or is that only in the States?
Replacement theory and Sharia law is coming to the UK. And I don't know how people can take this seriously, but they take it very seriously.
Well, I know, and of course it's like I see like there's 5 women with scars on the on the metro, and I'm all like, did you really? And again, I can be sensitive to the fact if change is happening quite quickly, and the because again, I think historically this kind of population shift is not normal. I'll just use China as an example. Only 0.4% of people who live in China weren't born in China. Yeah. So it's at least in terms of Chinese, which of course there's diversity in there, but and the same thing with Japan. You don't have a lot of people who live in Japan who weren't born. Who weren't born. They have some expats, but of course, and so if you have a country where we have maybe it's 17% were born in a different country, and if you say the parents were, whatever it is, and so that's a lot of change going on. And so people, and of course, the reason why we have different cultures because they were allowed to develop, and there's always been connection, of course, but there was enough, I don't know, cultural space or boundary, whatever, for the diversity that we like to enjoy to develop. And so if everything starts going together, I mean, change is going to happen. But so I just want to say that I don't think everybody who has an issue with demographic changes or immigration is a racist. I don't think that at all. Some people are, and it's certainly used to it's certainly used to get people freaked out. As well. But so if you see, if you and so but that meme was quite telling, because I saw that when I was trying to
it's symbolized
put together the slides today. I'm like, oh my god, I should have put that in.
It does symbolize a lot, and it's becoming, I don't know what the rest of the West is like. I mean, it's not like that in Bulgaria, because there are Muslims in Bulgaria, and obviously in Sofia's got a huge mosque and one of the biggest synagogues as well, interestingly. And Plovdiv also has an old mosque from the 1400s. There's still a Muslim population there that use it. You don't see that much veiling at all. So I don't know whether they've got the same, somehow I feel, but maybe this is just because we live in England and the West. I don't think they've got the same sort of reactions. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's not something I feel when I'm there. But here, I think it's absolutely been demonized, and any person veiling is becoming something to fear. Which is really unpleasant. And I didn't grow up in that environment in London at all, that it really wasn't something like that, and now I feel that it's absolutely something that we're being fed, maybe only the past 10, 20 years, I don't know, but
And there is one particular purse, so Palestine excluding a radical femalist who really thinks that Muslim women and especially Muslim teenage girls need to be saved from the hijab.
But maybe there's some
and again I feel if I feel for them. So if someone is wearing it and they don't want to, of course I would be on their side, not to have to. But this idea that it's all, that they have to be saved, that they're somehow caged by this scarf and and it's this kind of blanket statement is problematic.
And I think also because we feel that everywhere is Afghanistan. Every Muslim country in our minds now has become Afghanistan, and the Taliban and the burqa and I mean, my friend did a documentary there and it was called No Place for Women, about Afghanistan, and I think it is absolutely awful by the sound of it. But that's not every Muslim, that's not every Muslim country. And I think we've been fed this vision of the sort of burqa'd Muslim woman oppressed by the horrific Muslim man. And it's really, really dripped into our psyche here in England, probably in America, I don't know, but certainly in England at the moment, where, we're really being told to fear them.
And to protect the women.
I think that's why there's so little empathy, obviously not from us, but from a lot of people here, for the women or the men or anyone in Gaza, because I think they just, I mean, I've seen the comments, they just all of them are, absolutely sort of slated as, Hamas, terrorist, ISIS.
Well, they got what they deserved somehow. That they deserved it.
Horrific. The women are, whatever, who cares? But the men, oh my God, that's not what I see. I don't see that. I mean, I just don't understand how people can see that, but because they're too ignorant to not understand that they've just overlaying it with what they think ISIS is, or what they think is happening in Afghanistan with the Taliban, and all of it is, Muslims. It's all one big mess. And it's really disturbing. It's not. I don't know. It's really odd.
Well, and also because I always have in my back pocket, and you've lived in places where there's a Muslim majority. And so, of course, no one's going to assume that they're tweeting with someone, this white American woman. No one's going to assume that I lived in Gaza for 2 years.
That's amazing.
So some people really start saying about the basically the men are, it's just this kind of, it's the same old trope, they're out, they're sex crazed barbarians, they're after your women,
so it's awful,
and their own and all this stuff, and they're just all this stuff.
Exactly.
And I would say I'd point out I don't know, because I would be this is I go I realize, and this is right shortly after October 7th, I'm I realize that tensions are heightened now, but that is some of the most racist. That's might be some of the most racist things I've seen in quite a while. Am I in the deep South during Jim Crow or something? Am I in Tel Aviv at a hardcore Zionist conference? I mean, what's happening here?
It's
and
happening.
You would know if you went there. If you went there, then you would know. You should go, and if you why don't you go to Gaza, or why don't you go live there? Then
everyone that's been,
actually. I did.
You've been, and anyone that has been doesn't say that. I mean, or not just Gaza, but anywhere in Palestine.
And I would say I've been to
what they say, but the truth doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter to these people.
And then it's just, and I would mention okay, I lived in Gaza for 2 years. I spent a lot of time in with the Muslim communities in India. I've also spent a bit of time in Indonesia. I've traveled around other countries in the Middle East, and I felt like saying, let me tell you something. And I'm overweight now, but I was, I had it going on back then. and it was I was never raped, sexually assaulted, never happened. And did you get ogled sometime? I mean, you're a curiosity, if me and my other friends from the single teachers from the international school, because I was brunette and there were 2 blondes, or walking, you're gonna, and everybody knows you there, but no one ever messed with me. ever.
No.
And
No,
that's
neither
anecdotal.
would
I'm not
we.
saying that that there aren't sexual crimes in those countries. And I would tell
Mm,
people, I go, I will bet you all I have that I would be safer walking around Gaza, even before the genocide was happening,
no, yeah.
any night of the week than I would be in downtown London, New York,
Yeah.
Texas, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, they were just, you were brainwashed and they were just using you. I go, what are you saying? That they could have raped me and wanted to, but didn't, because I knew that
It's so
22 years
horrible.
later, I'd be useful to have on the internet.
I know.
It's so
It's
stupid.
just awful demonization, isn't it?
Just
It's
like,
horrible.
whatever.
I never felt that when I lived in KL, and but then I'm much taller than like a lot of the Malay men, so they didn't really intimidate me. But
yeah, no, that's another story. Because when I was in, go ahead. Before Artless steps in here, I just want to say it's another story because, back in my, my youthful days and before babies and COVID weight or whatever, not that big can also be beautiful. I was like, I got a lot of attention. I mean, I could have had lots of boyfriends and whatnot and dates and whatever, but not in China. The Chinese men could care less. I was invisible when I lived in China for a year in Shanghai. I worked there for a year, and it wasn't just me; it was some of my colleagues, because the Chinese men, that at least we were in, because we're in China, didn't really. I mean, they were friendly, but not like into us. And the expats were there, all wanted like 18-year-old Shanghainese girls. So I was like, none of us had any really for like it was the weirdest thing. And one time, this is not off the veil topic, but I'll share with it because I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this as long as I live. It was so obscene. My friend and I, we would once a month we would go to some nice hotel and have like a Sunday brunch where you have like free flow champagne. And so we were finishing up. I'm like, oh, we still have a half a bottle of champagne. Let's go to the bar. And there was watch some cricket or football or whatever was going on there. And there's a group of, like, I don't know if they were playing, I think they were done playing rugby or whatever. So this group of expat guys, probably maybe they're in finance or real estate. I don't know. It's a fancy hotel, and they're just talking down to the staff or Shanghainese staff, and then they start singing the song. We're just like, I can't remember the first verse, but it was like, have no fear, give us cheer. We're just here to drink your beer and screw your nasty women or something. And just singing it. And my friend and I are at the bar. We're watching the bartender's face. And we're like, and there was two young cocktail waitresses or younger servers. And we're just like, and then these dickheads, they want to come and talk to us while they have like some young thing with them who can barely speak English, and they want to have her sitting on the knee while they're having a conversation with us. I'm like, you can buzz all the way off. It was so, oh god, that was that was in 2001. Yeah, so I will never forget that. I was just like,
yeah, that's hideous, isn't it?
Who does that? And these were like, I'm sure very educated, very wealthy, very proper English guys.
Expats abroad.
I was like, I can't even believe it. Anyway, Artless, anything you want to say before we watch the next section of Lila's talk?
I think the only thing I'd probably add to that is to say, just coming back to the whole cultural element of this. I remember a time when I was in Jordan, and I was in the desert, and it was my first time actually being there while there was a sandstorm, and I was then given the keffiyeh actually to wear because if you've ever been caught up in a desert sandstorm when you've got like dust going in your eyes, your ears, and everything else, you kind of see, oh right, there's actually a practical reason why people used to wear this, like
yeah,
yeah. I think that's another element that we don't tend to think about it if you've lived in urban cities where, of course, you don't have desert sandstorms, so you don't see the need for it. But again, it comes back to that whole idea of this symbol, this visual expression doesn't always necessarily need to be religious. It could also just be cultural, tailored to the specific environment. And again, we tend to miss that out when we're just harping on about why why women are wearing these things. Or, and by the way, in the Middle East, this is also why some of the men wear the keffiyeh with the thing, because again, no one wants sand and dust in their eyes. It's like it's a very practical thing. It's
Or the
got
heat,
nothing
the
to do
sun.
with
I was going to also say the heat. That sometimes being covered
Yeah.
with a light fabric, I'm sure, is
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
than having everything, you know, out broiling. Even though they have the, you know, they're don't have to wear the sunscreen like I do as much. But yeah, I mean, no, there was some times when I was like, you know, especially more so, not so much in the my time in the Middle East, but in India, when I was unfortunate enough to be there right before the monsoon starts, where it's just like you feel like you're a baby. Especially when there's no wind and it's just like, and I was like, I would be out with like a covering and like an umbrella and just trying to survive. And I'm like, why didn't I listen to my Indian friends when they told me, Tara, you do not want to be here
Yeah, in monsoon,
this
exactly.
month. You don't want to be here in May. Bad idea. I was like, oh, well, you know, just worked out with my kids' schedule. And I was just like, never again. I think I might die. It was so brutal. I was just like, oh my God. Anyway, let's read a couple of, I need to read out these, or I should read out these comments because some people might be listening and not watching. So let's see, I've missed a couple. I think we only have a couple. So Zello Yellow said, it's women from other cultures for the most part long term. It's just Muslim women in the crosshairs currently. So I think, I'm not sure, that was in response to the beginning.
Well, it's true.
Okay. I see what she's saying. So there's always been this kind of like we have to have some group that reflects back our freedom or our modernity or whatever. I think that's what she's saying, and that now for a long time that's been the Muslim women, but it's been other groups in the past. There's always the third world, and you know the whole that's one thing. Obviously, isn't just
I'll be back in 1 sec.
the Middle East. They actually, I don't know, because a lot of them have are oil rich. So anyway, and let's see this one, Beanie. I already said that. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah. That's a great anecdote. So he liked one of our anecdotes, or she or he. And one borne out by the literature, there isn't a consensus on dress within Islamic countries from a feminist standpoint, let alone more broadly. So yeah, so well put. That's noted. That even within feminists,
I think you're talking about your story about the two ladies in Gaza who had different standpoints on veil. Yeah.
But also the ones that you shared, it shows that within these groups, you know, even within, you know, because Gaza, there's 2 million people there, but it's not, it's a small place. But even there, and then within the Gazan population, within the feminist women, who it's also, you know, actually, you know, not necessarily a huge group. Even within that group, you have, you know, there's not a consensus. And people's opinions can change as you know, the surroundings change, and they you know, life goes on. So yeah, so thank you for that, Beanie. Let's see. Beanie also said earlier they are in cultural dialogues and there are in culture. Okay, so within culture there are dialogues and tensions. These can be culturally specific. So yeah. So again, this again, it's this point over and over again. The idea that there's some sort of monolith Muslim culture or Muslim woman is just a mental abstraction. It's actually, you know, that if you actually go there, then you see all the particularity and the nuance and the contradictions, even within one person. You know, with my friend.
I mean, but it's like what Anna was saying earlier on about, you know, coming from a Bulgarian Orthodox background where perhaps, you know, their mode of dress will be quite different to an English Protestant mode of dress, right? Like, you know, it's all very different. That's even within the same sort of religion. This one size fits all situation just doesn't work. Okay, that's just what it is. Oh, Beanie's.
I wasn't laughing. I mean, I wasn't laughing like, haha. I was laughing because I saw Beanie's thing. Definitely a she. I'm also looking at my phone because I have a kid. I have a kid texting me. So if I'm looking away, it's because we all have these things going on. I'm trying to figure out if I should say yes or no to my son.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry. Let's just see here.
Sorry, my
He always
cooker's now
likes to. He
beeping.
always likes to go
Yeah.
someplace, and then he's like, "Oh, can I come back tomorrow? I don't have train money." I'm like, "What? Where are you at?"
Classic.
Anyway,
We've
so
all done that
okay.
age, haven't we?
Oh, I have to stay at my girlfriend's now because I don't have £2 for the train. Like, oh, is that how it works?
Yeah.
Anyway, oh
That's
well,
how it
he's almost
works.
18, so whatever.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
was it
it's
delivered?
definitely,
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, yeah, no, I think. from our
Actually, I'm sorry.
discussions,
Can
really
I
obvious
can I
that,
just pull? Can I
there's
drop
so
down for
many-
just a moment? Can I need to go and there's some weird things going on outside my door. I'll be back in like a minute. Can you guys chat? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna.
We'll
Yeah.
just continue the conversation. It's fine. Okay. Yeah. So I think what's coming out of our conversations is the fact that clearly there are cultural elements that we in the West don't really understand about Muslim culture, or don't even allow for. We infantilize Muslim women a lot and don't allow for them to speak for themselves and hear their own perspective. We've sort of juxtaposed our own position on them, and we don't allow for enough voices to challenge that narrative at all. And I think that comes through. I mean, it's borne out by my own experience, and it's borne out by listening to what both you and Tara have been discussing in the last hour or so as well, that we just don't allow for the narrative of different voices to be heard, and therefore we kind of live in this kind of world of ignorance where we arrogantly assume that our perspective is the only one, and it must be the right one.
Yeah, it must be the right one because we're sort
And
of
I mean,
westernized and therefore better in some way because we think we're more progressive, and progressive is good now. It doesn't matter in what direction, but it's sort of seen as better. I don't know, but there's so much in that as well, isn't there? That's a whole other conversation.
yeah. And do you find it a bit
Progress-
hypocritical as well? Because especially within the GC movement, where we keep saying, "Oh, not every woman is the same, not every," but we somehow within this movement, especially in this time between this, in this Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we seem to ignore that advice completely and be like, "No, there's only just one narrative. There's only just one narrative. They're all oppressed. We need to go and bomb them to liberate them. We need to,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's only one narrative, and if you're not, on the same side, then you're an absolute monster. It's really weird. Everything that we kind of fought against and said no, like smearing people with these silly slogans is so superficial, and it doesn't get to the heart of what anyone's issues are. And yet, wow, the GC movement's fallen into that 100%. On one side, which is really surprising. I didn't expect that. I thought we were all a bit more critical thinking.
I wasn't gonna drink today, ladies,
Yeah.
because I
Me
drank
too.
yesterday, but it's Friday.
It
Hey,
is.
it's Friday night.
Whatever. Who knows what I might
If you
text
can't
later.
drink on a Friday night, when can you drink?
Oh my God. Okay, so this is wonderful. I
can't
want
have
to
a
thank
drink
you
on a
so
Friday
much
night, I
for
don't know
coming
when you
on. Yeah, go ahead. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. I love this. It's better. It's so much nicer when it's not just me and the camera.
That's great.
Just like trying to look natural, and I stare at the camera. No idea what's happening. Okay, so now let's watch. Let's see, there's another segment from Lila. I think it's like 6 or 7 minutes, and then we'll come back, and then we'll take what she says and see how we think it fits with Aayan. How do you say that name? Hirshi Ali.
Hirshi Ali, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see if this works again. I will keep. I need to find. If it's the volume might not be so good, but I have the subtitles turned. I just have to find my note where I wrote down. Oh, it's at 23 minutes. Okay, so let me see if I can find that. 13. No. Almost 23 minutes. La, la, la. Okay, I'll just do it here. Well, no, because it's 8 minutes. Oh, here we go. We'll just start here.
been the way that choice was deployed as a key symbol in the new culture wars that pitted the freedoms of the liberated West against the oppression suffered by the Muslim woman. If we want to take Miriam Cook's wonderful phrase, it's like one word, the Muslim woman, right? The generic Muslim woman, as opposed to the free Western one. And it has justified everything from invasions of Afghanistan, which we were talking about earlier, military invasions, immigrant policing, and border control. And of course, we're living with that now in a very big way. So the focus on choice in the matter of Muslim women's rights, I argued in this book, has a double genealogy. On the one hand, it's kind of reputable. It comes out of CEDAW, it comes out of human rights, it comes out of feminism, with their utopian and universalist ideals. But the second basis for this that allows it, I think, to have such purchase is more sordid. And I wrote about, and I think we can track it through the history of popular representations that are today represented by what Dora Ahmed has called, she's a literary scholar, called Pulp Non-Fiction. And I wrote about this. The heroines of this genre are oppressed Muslim women who've escaped abuse. Both feminist human rights and sordid pulp nonfiction, I think, work together to establish distinction and to rank cultures and societies in some kind of civilizational scale whose coordinates are marked by freedom versus bondage, consent versus force, choice versus constraint. And so I think you probably all know the story from the universalist, feminist, CEDAW ideals, which are good. And that's where freely chosen lives comes from. And the West is, in some theorists' views, still patriarchal, but way ahead of other cultures where they're way behind. And I think the fiction that any of us choose freely, and I'm going to come back to this again and again, is maintained by conjuring up, whether explicitly, as in these novels, or implicitly, those in distant lands who live in bondage with no rights, no choice, no agency. And the fact that in liberal democracies, which I guess we have still, the most contentious debates are about how choice should be balanced with the public good in schooling, in healthcare, in welfare, reproduction, gun control. This gets lost in the storyline of those others who have no choice. So I looked in this book, I'm an anthropologist, but I looked in the book at a genre that makes the storyline, I think, very believable for a lot of people around the US. And apparently these are popular in Europe too. So these are popular mass market memoirs that form the seedy bedrock for these lofty universalist aspirations. So books like this, Without Mercy, you've all seen them at airport bookstores. Probably you've all read them, some of them. The copycat covers always show women hidden by black veils, sometimes white, some revealing only the eyes, sometimes only one eye, depends on the part of the world. I think the Bangladeshi one, they have one, the South Asian ones, but they're called Sold, One Woman's True Account of Modern Slavery, My Forbidden Face, Without Mercy, this one, Burned Alive, Married by Force, which I showed you earlier, the picture of. And these are always personal stories as told to someone. And it's hard to know whether to treat these as memoirs as nonfiction or not. They're billed as nonfiction. And some are unreliable, people have pointed out, because they rely on repressed memories, like suddenly somebody remembers all this terrible stuff that happened to her, but she'd forgotten it for 25 years, or, you know, some of these are very interesting. Many of the protagonists are known only by first names, or, you know, they're secret. Those princesses, whatever she's called, the princess, you know, what are they called? Anyway, the Saudi princesses. Some are based on, some like Norma Khouri's Honor Lost have been exposed as complete fakes, frauds, hoaxes. And the books are always co-written with journalists or with ghostwriters. And one of the ghostwriters I read about in the English newspaper had written like 100 of these. Yeah, so it's a genre, and their names never appear, right? The ghostwriters. So anyway, to the extent that they might reflect real bad experiences, incidents, which is possible, I think they're as disturbing as any stories that we read about in the paper, that we know about among our friends, stories of abuse that we know happen everywhere. Psychology case studies, pathological behavior everywhere. So there may be some of that, but the books work very hard not to let you make that comparison. So they're very exotic. They set them in basements and Pakistani homes in the north of England. They set them in Morocco. They set them in the hills of Yemen, so that it's this exotic locale that is very different from anything that we know. And because they're personal stories, as told to, they never have to ask what the community thought of the particular marriage or the abuse that you're hearing about. So you don't know whether the community itself condemns this just as much as we all condemn any of these stories that we hear about. So, but they never let you know that, because they never put it in a context. They only put it in the context of an exotic culture, but not actually a community of people who might really disapprove of this and think it's immoral and think it's, many things that horrifying as we would think. So, and Letty Bolt, this legal scholar, has called this, blaming culture for bad behavior. So it's the culture that makes this happen. And what I argue in the book is that these stories work at the affective level, emotional level, to connect readers to the ideals of freedom and choice that are being so violated in these stories. Our victims are heroines. And then by associating them with these other cultures, and most times they are Muslim cultures, then the affect goes, you love the heroine, you hate the culture and the religion that is making her life so miserable. So, and I think the messages of these tawdry, as I call them, tawdry memoirs are reinforced by much more respectable work that we all hear about by feminist figures, celebrated in Western social circles, especially those forged by Islamophobia, that I think now are moving very much into the White House, in fact. So we have, I don't know if she's come out yet, apparently not yet. Aayan Hirshi Ali, whose first book was called The Caged Virgin, an Emancipation Proclamation for Women and Islam, Bondage, Freedom, Consent. And then there's this, my favorite person, this 70-year-old American feminist psychologist, Phyllis Chesler, who recently published a memoir of her 6 months, as she calls it, in captivity in Kabul, back to Kabul, as the young bride of an very elite Afghani fellow student from Bard College that she met when she was 19. She married him, very exotic. She was really excited, girl from Brooklyn. And she goes to Afghanistan, and his dad, I think, was the head of a major bank there. So they were in a gated community with chauffeurs and embassy parties and blah, blah, blah. But she saw it was captivity. And when she escaped after 6 months, and her chapter titles of this memoir that she just came up with talk about kind of Muslim bondage to American freedom. The chapter titles I didn't copy them out. The Imprisoned Bride, then Burqas, then Harem Days, then Trapped, then finally Escape. And she calls Burqas body bags. So anyway, I could tell you a lot more about her, but I'll keep.
Okay. So, Artless, you're muted. I don't know if I can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. Okay. You need to, you're muted, so you'll need to unmute your microphone, Artless.
One sec.
There you go. There you
Sorry,
are.
my husband came saying some
No,
words.
it's okay. I just can't do it,
Yeah.
which is good. I don't have that thing, even though I'm
because
the.
my husband was talking.
No, it's cool. No, I just that because I was surprised that it wouldn't let me do it, because I was like, well, why can't I unmute her? And it says you can't unmute or mute your guest. I'm like, well, fine. I mean, I can remove you from the screen, but I can't
okay.
So just beware there. Don't make me get the hook. Anyway, I know why I chose that clip, and I've seen it 3 times now. But do you guys, Artless, do you have any initial comments or impressions about what we just watched, especially in terms of how these what they call pulp non-fiction accounts work in conjunction with more kind of UN based NGOs about these human rights concerns for women, etc., or anything else.
I think it just comes back to what we've been consistently saying, which is that we need to have a lot more cultural awareness than we currently have going on in the West. The scene, like, I think the UN's doing a really good job of trying to challenge that perspective, and I will give them that credit, but I don't know whether it's necessarily filtering down to your average lay person. I think the UN, by being the UN, gets to bring together different viewpoints on a regular basis and visit different countries and see firsthand what the cultural differences are and how they play into specific environments. And so they do try, but sometimes it feels very bureaucratic and top down and trying to filter that message down. Best way of countering some of these messages, the day-to-day interaction with someone else from another culture, right? And we often live in these silos where it doesn't always work, especially because with some cultural elements, they don't tend to sort of move outside of their own communities as much. So we tend to miss that as well.
Yeah. Anna, do you have something you want to add before I?
Yeah. I mean, I thought when she was talking about how these are slightly taken out of context and there's no idea about what the actual community of these women and their stories actually feel about any of this, whether they're as outraged or not as we. I thought that was quite interesting. And also, you can get this sort of feeling of like this real salacious kind of desire for the West to, I think anyway, to hear these stories and kind of just reaffirm all the awful things that they think about Islam and Muslim women. And it's like a sort of I'm trying to think of the equivalent. It's like a sort of sexy I don't know, some sort of sexy book about like being, I don't know, kind of in bondage and tied up, and like there's the whole aspect of like being trapped, and I don't know, there's something weird about it, but I can see it's obviously playing to an audience that is sort of absolutely lapping it up, with this this alien religion that we don't understand in the West, and this alien cultures, and it just sort of somehow these awful stories, they might be so few, but they seem to just kind of talk to everybody and symbolize something about the religion that just absolutely clicks, and we all lap it up. And I mean, I don't lap it up, but obviously lots of other people do. And that was quite interesting, hearing about these. There's obviously quite a lot. I've never spotted them at airports. I have.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the case. I don't travel that much anymore, but when I did, because when I first saw this, I was like, yeah, she has a point. Because if you have time, you're like, okay, I'm gonna, especially if it's a long flight, you go there.
I've just never seen that.
And I'll look at the magazine and I'll look at the books, and I'm thinking, there's always like 2 or 3 of these things.
How funny! I'm going to look
it's always the eyes stand out.
Maybe I have seen it. It's not something that I've ever thought. Oh, I must read that.
Yeah, the titles are great, like Caged Virgin and
exactly.
And Burned Alive and
riled up.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I think that and when you were go ahead, Art. Let's go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say one other thing I give us is Black women especially have this thing where we have a sexual aware. Okay, and there's this image of Black women, whether it's if you are from the Caribbean and you're, the festivals that they have, which they, they're some of them are quite sensuous. They dance a lot and always that maybe a lot of, and so there's this sort of this is a kind of like almost like a complete contradiction or a reverse image, shall we say, rather than a contradiction. But it's the same way where some white men tend to hypersexualize black women for things that they just do normally within their own environment, and if you sort of juxtapose that onto a Muslim position, it would be, oh yes, we see this slightly exotic person with her headscarf and her, you know, and all of a sudden I
What's underneath?
Like 10,000 years of analysis, and it's like, guys, sometimes it's just not complicated. That's just how they are. Like, you know, it's
the
really
sexy
not that
secrets.
deep.
Yeah.
People. Yeah, it's like, okay, so if you've ever been to Caribana or any of those things in the Caribbean, where, you know, they have these festivals where, you know, of course they're gyrating or undulating and stuff. It's their culture. It's not anything where they're doing it to, I don't know, attract the image of men. And it's the same way, like, you know, a Muslim woman wants to wear her
And even if they were, I mean, we are
this
sexual
is what
beings.
Allah said. No, this is not what Allah said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always this really weird thing of just trying.
I mean,
to,
is Carnival
like
Puritan? I don't know.
Really sort of make it a much more complex thing than it actually really is. Like, let people live, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say, in terms of being American,
animals.
Yeah, being American is that, and not that Americans are the only people that. I want to say, in terms of why these stories resonate. And again, because I was like, you know, I don't know why I never thought of it before. I was like, maybe I've been too busy reading too serious, dusty books to keep a tabs on what's going on in popular literary culture. But and I'm sure you'd find similar things way back when they're during the colonial period, about who, you know, it's kind of like the Heart of Darkness Redux or something. But people love a hero story, And so, you know, again, I think when she picks up, like, you know, we're invited, of course, to identify with and want to this woman, whoever she is, to escape, to be free, and to not have these freedoms and these things that, of course, if I'm watching it, or if I put on my regular Western hat, we love that shit, because she's trying to get what we already have, or, you know, so it's kind of, it reinforces this idea. I mean, I'm not saying that that's all conscious, but these things going on, and the hero story. So she, you know, she's able to extract herself and get free, and then go and, I don't know, live. It's almost like at the end of the Barbie movie when Barbie goes from the regular, although, you know, that was probably kind of impressive, and gets to like go to the gynecologist and everything's great. It's like to get free and be in the West, or be maybe or from the village to the city, or from, you know, whatever it is. And to, again, this whole thing about to live a life that she chooses to live, a freely chosen life. And, you know, people, of course, eat that up because we love the hero story. Plus, it reflects back on us, our like, if I was to be, you know, I'm American, that it reflects back on this stuff. You know, like, yeah, this is so terrible that, you know, that whatever she was saying. And then also how, of course, if these women are the heroines, and we're supposed to allow, and we feel for them, then what's the bad guy in these stories? You know, so it's the culture, it's the men, it's the religion, or kind of ambiguous thing. And so it kind of, and so so I think that, and of course the fact that it's a woman, and that she's probably an attractive woman in the eyes, even though, you know, like you mentioned quite rightly, I think this is true, even though they're quite covered, it's also some people find that quite attractive. Like what's underneath, you know, what's underneath that. So you're not, so while she's escaping these what they call, you know, she called them these kind of tawdry pulp nonfiction, like how much is fictionalized, how much of it isn't. It mentioned also that some of them have been called out as being hoaxes, and she mentioned that one guy who's a ghostwriter is like ghostwritten like 100 of these books.
Oh,
You know, so it's kind of fill in the blank now. I mean, you know, it's like vampire novels, or, you know, or something going on there. Yeah, I think it's so I can see why. And again, and you would think if it's just entertainment, if it's just whatever. I mean, I read, you know, I used to read, you know, really kind of not a long time ago, maybe in my early 20s. Every once in a while, I'd love like a really dirty romance novel, you know, like Jackie Collins or something.
God, yeah.
Yeah. And so some of it's like that, but of course, what you don't realize is that with that titillation, you're getting all these messages. You know, you're getting all these things that are that are kind of, kind of over time, just kind of getting this certain idea into your head. And it's like, of course, if I was an American and I'm reading this book, especially after 9/11, I'm really gonna be like, yeah, because also it justifies all the other
Yeah.
shit that's going on.
Yeah.
For women, we
Exactly.
have to, it all kind of feeds in. But I had never, again, before I had stumbled across her work, I wouldn't have tied those two things together. And then it's kind of one of those things, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And when she mentioned Aayan Hirshi Ali, I was like, oh my God, that's totally what she's doing. She's just a slightly elevated version of those
That's interesting.
things, in a way. And so of course she's going to be celebrated and revered in all those circles. And she's escaped, and she escaped this stuff. And I don't know. I know there's been some concerns about. There's been some allegations that she fabricated some of her origin story, but whatever. And so she made it big, and now she's married to Niall Ferguson, and they're like the pro-war power couple, and people love her. And why? She gives them what they want, and it's a hero narrative, and they get to feel like they're for these women, and they're not racist, they're not chauvinist. They really want to free these women from this terrible situation that they're in. And of course, like we will say that, and we don't have to say it because our audience aren't idiots, but we're not saying that bad things don't happen in these places. But it's just that when that becomes that these things get picked out and get to stand in for the whole, that is highly problematic. And I've talked too much. Artless Anna, do you want to say some more about this? I'm going to try to pull up Hirshi Ali's books.
In terms of Aayan Hirshi Ali, her story, I think one of the issues is her story is really unique to her own experience, right? Well, I say unique, it's not unique, but it's very reflective of that part of the world that she originally came from, Somalia. Okay. Where yes, FGM is very common. It's a very cultural phenomenon as well as a religious element. But I mean, if you were to go to, I don't know, Indonesia or Malaysia, maybe Anna will step in here. I don't think FGM is a very common practice in those countries at all. And they're all both Muslim countries. You see what I mean?
No.
So
exactly.
Yeah. So I certainly know that in my part of Africa where I live, again, FGM would be seen as completely an obscene act, and not to be, I just don't know anybody, and I know a lot of Muslims in the part of Africa that I'm in. As my family who are Muslim, it just wouldn't be a thing to go and mutilate anybody's genitals for the name of the culture, for the name of the religion, or for any such thing. Okay. In that part of Africa that she emerged from, unfortunately, that is a prevalent cultural, and I guess they use the banner of religion in practice. It's not reflective for everyone else. So I can understand why she would feel quite bitter and quite resistant to the religion, given her own personal experiences. But it's worth saying that I don't think it's the experience of every young Muslim woman, and again, I mean, okay, so let's just even to juxtapose to say, and again, it's not fair to necessarily use that, but herself and Iman, David Bowie's wife, are both from, roughly the same country.
Oh, okay, yeah, David Bowie's wife. Okay, yeah. Was she from Somalia? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She's beautiful. Anyway, side note.
Somalia as well. She's stunning. Yeah, she is really stunning. But I don't know whether she's been through FGM or not. But as far as I'm aware, like she doesn't have the same maybe better memories of the culture that she's emerged from, probably because she hasn't been through those same traumatic experiences, right? I mean, there are elements of it where clearly she being Aayan has obviously been through a very horrible experience, but sometimes, like, it's just like you said, she's playing up to this in order to invoke the white savior.
Well, I don't know about that, but it could be as well. But I mean, if you especially with, I think about what we just saw with or just the two snippets of Lila's work, it's like, and again, I'm not saying that she like cooked this up on some whiteboard, like, okay, first thing I'm gonna do is get out of Somalia, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna totally, but it's like once you, and I don't know what I'm not inside her head, so I don't know, but I mean, once you start looking at it this way, of course she's so popular in that group. Of course. I mean, look at this. Infidel, my life.
Of course, because she's reinforcing
a
the
Muslim
very worst
woman's
impressions
cry for
of the
reason.
culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think
Yeah.
this
I
is
mean,
what's
she's
interesting.
reinforcing the pre-existing pre-existing what's it called, ideas
Stereotypes
of
or
women, of the
stereotypes,
culture, of everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's and so you've got this living proof of this person who reinforces all your preconceptions of this, not my words, but perhaps in their head, barbaric infidel culture. You know what I mean? That
yeah, and you can say, look, it's not me saying it, it's her
And
saying it. Are you going to tell her that she's wrong? Are you going to tell her that she doesn't know what it's like to be a Muslim or whatever? And of course I can't, because I'm not those things, but I'm just like, well, so it's well, you know what it is, ladies. It's a human shield.
It's a self-perpetrating.
Well, what I thought was interesting,
it's one of those things where
very well paid, and she's having. I mean, good for her. I mean, her and Niall are on they're living. I mean, they're living good. Good for them.
But I haven't read the book, so I can't really comment about what's in it. But what I think is interesting about it is that it is exactly as Artless was saying. It's a very specific cultural experience of a particular kind of a part of the world where certain things have happened, and it is not all Muslims, but somehow it's become like the generic symbol of everything that people don't like about Islam and Muslims and the entire culture. And that's what I find really extraordinary, because you don't have the same for Christianity, and you don't have the same for Judaism, or I don't think any other religion. Are you expected?
Which has been great for women, by the way. I mean, Christianity has never been a problem for women.
But there's some parts of the one. I mean, I'm not saying I don't know enough about other Christians.
No. I'm just saying to make the point that if we're going to about the hypocrisy, which is what you're getting at, is that if people want, it's the thing. It's like, if we're going to measure, let's measure with the same cup. So if you want to look in the whole history of Islam vis-a-vis in terms of women, then let's do the same measure with Judaism, with Hinduism, with Christianity or whatever.
Yeah, but
people want to use different, I mean, Dawkins and those guys, they go after Islam with like this furious passion.
Which is so strange. Well, it's not strange, because it's obviously the climate, but they're Christians, evangelical Christians and Jehovah's Witnesses and all kinds of different Christians all over the world that have got nothing in common with me. I'm just an sort of Orthodox Christian Bulgarian who is just culture for me. It's because it comes from like the sort of very traditional Bulgarian pagan kind of roots, that go back thousands of years, and that's what it is for me. But that's not what it is for someone in America and the Bible Belt, But why this particular woman's story is supposed to somehow symbolize the whole of Islam? I just find that so odd. That's the weird climate we're in. And it's not, clearly, is it? It's not. It's very, very particular to a very specific part of the world where that's practiced. And certainly none of my Muslim friends, I've never heard anything like that ever from them. And they come from like everywhere: Turkey, Malaysia, Saudi, Iran. I've never heard a story like that. So
as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Artless, you may know more. I think that female genital mutilation of the type she's talking about is a couple of North African countries, or a couple of African countries, and then not the whole country. There's a couple of
specific areas,
and I think I'm not positive, but I have never heard of this being like a cultural practice anywhere else. But again, I've not researched it.
But what you get, I mean, Twitter's not the world, obviously, but what you quite often get is, you say anything, and then you have a sort of barrage of loopy Western women going, oh, well, of course, you stand for, FGM and what? I'm just saying, don't bomb Gaza.
It's like, you stand for the wanton, you stand for genocide. Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry.
You love rapists and, births and FGM. And
Well, no, and they come at you with some random tweet. I'm like, did you get that from the IDF troll farm? I'm like, what do you want me to say to that?
I know.
Go ahead, Artless.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if FGM was a cultural practice in Palestine, for example, or like, you know, I don't think it's something that's done there, but I could be wrong. I don't know enough. Like, I certainly in my travels throughout the Middle East, I didn't know it to be a practice that was practiced. My understanding is, yes, it's places in Somalia, really rural places in like, I don't know, not even Pakistan, but perhaps maybe there. But it would be the really rural.
Is it? Okay, I thought it was
of those parts of the country. It certainly wouldn't be. Yeah, I think that there are.
We'll have to look into it. Look into
where,
it, and I'll put in the notes of the video. Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, this is the thing is that I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's a very niche practice, isolated to certain parts of the globe where, yes, Islam is prevalent, but I would say let's look at the culture too. I think the culture is really a crucial thing about understanding it. This is, I mean, I've said this before. When I first moved to the UK, and I met some of the Muslim, not just women, just Muslims in general, I was really surprised and taken aback because certainly in my experience of meeting and interacting and hanging out and having Muslims in my own family in Africa, this was a very different Muslim to the one I was used to. I didn't know people who wore the niqab. I didn't know people who dressed all in black. In Africa, we love bright, colorful clothing. Everything that we do is just, you know, on 10. So it was, and I remember like my best friend's
on 10? Is that what you said? On 10?
Jordan and her being in the streets in London. And yeah, we're on 10. Everything's on
10. Yeah, okay. Can I use that? Or is that cultural appropriation? I like that. I'd be like, I'm on 10, baby. I'm on 10.
No, it's fine. I think I probably culturally appropriated, but yeah.
Okay.
And she was like, "Oh,
impress my kids."
All these women wearing the like all this in black and everything else. And I was like, yeah, it's just a different, you know, thing. And then I met someone from Pakistan, not from the areas of Pakistan that are prevalent in the UK. This person from Karachi, and I mean Lahore switched on. It looked like they, you know, one of them wore a hijab, the other one didn't. And they were explaining to me that like a lot of the people who first migrated to the UK, they came from a specific, especially up in like North Yorkshire, Bradford, those areas. They came from a specific town in Pakistan called, I think, Maypuri or something like that. But basically, again, it's a very niche place in Pakistan. It's not reflective of Pakistan as a whole, but maybe that's the most visible symbol that we have of South Asian men and women in London. Okay, but that's not reflective of, say, Pakistan as a whole at all. In Lahore, in Karachi, you will see women who wouldn't go amiss in France, in Paris, in Toronto, or in any other, you know, cosmopolitan city. So again, we tend to juxtapose our own impressions based on a very, very small snippet. We've seen perhaps sometimes in the media, occasionally on our streets, and it's just
caged version.
Oh yeah. Did you say virgin? Caged virgin.
It's a caged version. I mean, that's. Well, you know, you gotta hand it to him. That's a fantastic title. I mean, really.
But it just.
I mean, her publishers. I mean, I'm sure she signs off on it. But no, and I think that in terms of, and I'm wading into waters that I don't know a lot about in terms of the geography of female genital mutilation. But in terms of the value and the necessity of guaranteeing a daughter's virginity, that also has that's a political economic thing in addition to the cultural and the religious. And there are places where, you know, you have to, and it's still practiced, I'm assuming, where you have to go in before the wedding and make sure that the woman is still a virgin, or there's procedures where you can get like re-virginated, like you can get the like some sort of fake hymen in there. And it wasn't too long ago, and there's still places like this in the West. I'm not saying this is good or bad in terms of the valuing virginity before marriage. That's a whole other thing. a whole discussion. But you know, it wasn't that long ago that if not that people weren't messing around, but if it got out that you were a woman and you were sexually active before you were married, oh my God. And there's still some places in lots of the West where that's a there's a double standard, you know. So this idea that also that they're frozen in time and don't change. And I don't have to tell you ladies this, but maybe some of our audience, if you go back in Afghanistan is a great example, but also in Iran, I know a bit more about this because of my government's coups or whatever they're doing in there. But if you look at if you just look at just we'll stick with clothing, even just as a loose marker of how things are for women. If you look at the clothing in Afghanistan, like in the 1960s, 1970s, and you go on, you can see there's been a lot of ups and downs. And if you don't look at the geopolitical of that, as well as the internal, you can't understand what happened there. And similar things happened in other places. So it's the idea that there tends to be and it might be correlation, not causation, but that if you have a lot of disruption and a lot of colonial mucks and imperialism and coups and corrupt regimes and all kinds of instability, that's really not a great environment for, even if we just want to use the word choice, for women to have fewer constraints. And some of that is just, you know, people, you know, the ups and downs of gender politics, but also sometimes it's necessary for people to keep their women safe, you know, and if that's through clothing, if that's through chaperoning, if that's through whatever it is, if that's through protecting their reputation for both them and the family, I'm not in love with it, but I can understand it. But not to the degree of female genital mutilation. Mind you, that's a whole other thing. This idea that somehow it's always that's never good. Okay, I'll be a culturalist there. I can think of no reason to justify that act. But I mean in terms of the fact that, you know, we know this, women are vulnerable. And there could be, it's not always nefarious about having to, you know, limit where they go alone or without somebody else. And it couldn't mean
also, I think that some people just want to be away from the male gaze, right? We talk about this a lot as GC feminists. Okay, the male gaze, some of us find it annoying, irritating, hypersexualized, and you know, some people just want to opt out of it. Obviously, we're seeing some other young girls opt out of it by pretending they're men. We see other people go through it by acting as tomboys. Maybe some Muslim women just can't be asked to deal with it, and they just put on the veil. Hey, like, you know, that's what they want to do to stop people hypersexualizing them. You know, it's not. You know, and I've actually had conversations with some women, Muslim women, about this, but they're just like, yeah, we just don't like weird people staring at us. We'd rather just put on the veil. I'm like, and I've even said, oh, but don't you think in the West it probably draws more attention because it's not part of the cultural mode? And you're like, don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
That just made me think suddenly.
Well, they're just internalized white supremacy. That or no, not white supremacy. They've internalized internalized patriarchy. That's what it is. That's the only reason why a woman would choose to cover.
Oh yeah.
I mean, please, we all know that's true. Patriarchy made me do it. Yeah.
That just made me think when you were talking about that, how we were sort of, oh God, my phone. We were saying how the fact that you don't know what's underneath, you know, the veil, and that sort of gets some people quite excited. And it just made me I just suddenly thought of all the IDF with Palestinian women's underwear, which is just insane. Like the amount of posing with Palestinian women's underwear. Like there's obviously something really weird happening.
There's something Freud.
It's so
we got to call Freud into that. Yeah.
It's done something to them, hasn't it? Like it's completely sent them mad.
Yeah.
It's so odd.
I mean,
and they do it as groups and then share it online. It's just like,
but it's like,
okay.
Yeah, it's really strange.
I think that there's definitely something in the sense that, I do think that within Western culture where there's this very weird element of some white men who like to exoticize women of color, be it like the native Indians in America. I think, if you look at like, if you read Western stories or,
Pocahontas.
they used to find these native Indian women source of fascination. I mean, it was, the fact how they dressed, their demeanor, everything apparently was so different to the white women that they went to America with, and so for them it was a source of fascination. And the more weird elements, these guys would obviously rape some of these women that they took captive, and it was all, it was about subjugation and domination, but it was also about, what's that? They just fetishized something different so much that they want to it's like poke and prod at it in a way. It's really weird.
It is really weird.
Not
Yeah,
weird,
it's exactly that. Yeah. It is really strange. It's like I can see it.
And you see it with the IDF thing as well.
Yeah, because they obviously have dehumanized.
There's no need for you to go somewhere and be picking up someone's underwear. Like
no, not in a supposed war. I've never heard anything like it, but it's because they've dehumanized them to such an extent that they're like, it's like they're not women, they're not human. That it's like it's just like it's like nothing, what they're doing.
Don't you think it's also like a middle finger to the Muslim men? Because I think that we know that the IDF is not having, they can bomb and drone like
they can't fight,
but they haven't had much success at all inside Gaza. So they haven't had much success fighting and killing Hamas soldiers. They can go and try to humiliate people
and
by going to their homes
men,
and putting on their moms and their daughters' clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's subliminal.
Well, I'm sure there's other things going on there, but I think that's also like we're in your house.
Yeah, with your wife's knickers on. Yeah. It's not funny, but it's just awful.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of this bonding thing. You see some of the pictures, like 5, 6, 10 of them, all doing it.
Yeah, all doing it with loads.
It's become like a thing now. It's become like some sort of challenge or something.
Yeah, it's really odd, but it's obviously I just, would they do that anywhere else? I don't know. Would they? I mean, they don't.
But
go
also
anywhere
the double
else
standard. Can you imagine if Hamas did that? If they showed pictures, like if they were some of the places they went out, because I think that some of the military installations that they got into were definitely some of the more militarized
the kibbutzes,
sort of things. What if they had like taken the time to put on some of those women's clothes and like just paraded around in it? People would have lost their freaking minds. I mean, the double standard, the hypocrisy. It's one of those things like it's there. You know it's there, but when you see it like this, you're just like, my God, what else is there?
Double standards, completely.
Amazing.
Yeah. Can you imagine if they'd started putting on their pants or what?
Yeah.
But no, but from the other side, I remember I posted something months ago about like, these, some stupid comment that I was like, the sort of trans woman with the women's clothes, and like all the GCs are like, ready to lynch him for it. But then, lots of no problem with the IDF, wearing women's underwear, Palestinian women's underwear. And then some sort of, I can't remember who it was, just thought it was like, oh, what are you getting at them for? Crimes against underwear. Like, just couldn't. I don't know, just fact. It was just like, what? So you're really, really outraged by one thing, but the other thing, which is much worse, you don't give a shit about. It's so weird.
And there's another, I can't remember who it was, but there's somebody who has a quote some theorist who's like, you're really someone's really trapped in an ideology of evidence that's clearly against it, they immediately take it and use it as something that bolsters it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you see this like in lightning speed. You're like, well, and also with I can't remember who it was, but someone had a fantastic tweet from the chat group that some of us are a part of, and it was like, if we told you that they were gonna use the Palestinians for surrogacy, would you care then? Or if we told you that that it just this type of thing, when you're like, and of course, not that those issues aren't important, but it's like,
yeah, it was
it's the most amazing thing, and they want to come at us like we're the Nazis or we're the bad guys, and we're saying, you know what, it's bad to industrially massacre
Yeah.
women,
Trap
children, the
people.
elderly, the sick. It's wrong. And
Yeah.
if you think this all started on October 7th, please get a freaking please.
Read a book.
Please. And it doesn't matter. You can, and they show them. I do this on purpose because and I have like I'm probably tokenizing these people. My token Israeli and Jews. But I'm like, listen to what this Israeli said. Listen to what this Jewish person said. And it's like, look at it's like, listen to all these people. It's not me saying it. Listen, this Israeli is saying it. This Jewish person is saying it. It's like, and it doesn't
matter. Doesn't matter. No. Doesn't matter.
Grifters,
You can
sold out their people. I'm like, you know what?
Matter.
Fuck off. I can't even deal with you.
Yeah,
there's such.
No point.
It's crazy.
I tried that earlier on, but there's no point. I tried, trying to say, look, I listen to all these Israelis and Jewish journalists who are amazing, and listen to what they're saying. No, it's like utterly irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, So there's no point.
The most they can take, the most pushback they can take is Pierce Morgan. I mean, that's like.
Oh yeah, I retweet Pierce only because he's so mainstream, and if he's saying something against what the hell's happening, then
he has to play stupid though. Now it's all like, what's going on here, Netanyahu? What's happening here?
What's happening?
You know what's freaking happening here? This is their final solution. They've been waiting for a reason to do this, and now they're doing it. They tell you they're doing it, and then they do it, and you're over there. What's happening, Bibi? Why are you killing these people? It's like, please.
It's an accident. Surely it's just an accident.
Yeah. They're gonna keep on saying. They're gonna keep on asking about this until they're like, what? We get to 200,000 people dead, 300,000 people dead, and then maybe they'll consider the fact that this isn't just about self-defense.
Yeah.
Or has anything to do with Hamas.
I don't think has anyone changed their
mind. I'm sorry.
I'm going to start ranting about that as well.
Sorry.
I don't think we change anyone's mind either. I have to say, I just can't be quiet about it. But I don't think I've changed a single mind in 7 months.
I don't know. What I want to say is that I don't think it's in vain because we have each other and we're a smaller group. And I learn a lot by how I'll see something that how you put something or how Artless says something or how somebody else says something. And I click, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to. So at least with the rhetoric and with the argumentation, you get like, so when the fever does break, and we have to be able to live with ourselves. I mean, I don't know if it was Artless or it was somebody I was telling. I mean, especially when the Rafa thing was going, there's been a couple of times when I was like, Jesus, if I could, I would get on a boat and I would like I would get to Egypt and I'd pay someone to get me into a tunnel and I'd go there and I'd be a human shield. Not that the Israelis wouldn't bomb the shit out of me. They wouldn't care. I could be like, American white woman, mother, and they probably would. But I was just like, trying to like having these like with fantasies, like if I didn't have kids and I would like and I wasn't out of shape, like I would go there and kick some fucking ass. Let me in.
I know. I've sort of thought,
how am I going to do that? So I was like, okay, I'm just going to be a resistance tweeter on X.
What can we do? I'm such a chicken. I don't want to die. I don't want to get blown up. I mean, this is what's so horrific.
Well, this is in my head, of course, because there's no way I could actually do it. But
but even the people that are there, like the aid workers, anyone that's there, my God, the doctors, obviously all the Palestinian doctors and nurses and journalists, but anyone that's not, from there, that's there, helping. My God, how amazing are they? Like, what incredible people.
Oh God, yeah.
I don't have the courage, to do that. My God.
I don't know how you can operate on somebody without anesthesia. I mean, of course, it's terrible being the person that's being operated on. But to have to do that,
there are loads of there's American doctors, British doctors, loads of much
more
because
than we realize. Because they took their oath seriously. They're like, what are we going to do?
Yeah,
and I can't even imagine. Oh my God! And these dipshit these perf cows. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say cows. Want to come like, oh, what about right-wing Hamas? Isn't it Hamas right-wing? Blah blah blah. And it's like. Release the hostages. I'm like, why don't you release your face from out of your ass? And then
oh, I hate that. Yeah, this could all end, Oh, what a shame. If only they hadn't started it. There's all of that as well. It's just
terrible that Hamas lets all those kids be killed. Like,
just such cold, like lack of any human empathy. It's so shocking. It's just shocking.
Or my personal favorite, well, they're anti-gay rights. I'm like, well, kill all of them then.
Oh yeah, but
I mean,
what about
let's
all
kill
these stories about?
let's kill everybody that's not doesn't have a guy.
Oh yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
have
they're
a-
not as
a pride parade.
progressive, you know. Therefore, you know, but you know what I've read these awful stories about Israelis blackmailing gay Palestinian men.
Oh yeah,
You know, and then
this is a
obviously
long.
like,
This is a long.
completely-
This is a, yeah.
yeah, horrible,
I know.
horrifying.
I know this happens. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not like I was there, but
yeah.
both that because they're constantly surveilled. It's the most surveilled place ever.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, yeah. They just
So,
they know everything. They know
Yeah.
everyone's.
So
movements.
let's say some 16-year-old or 15-year-old, whoever is like trying to figure out their sexuality, looks online to look at whatever, and they clip that.
Yeah, yeah.
They try to get people to give information and all. Of course, I mean this is nothing.
Yeah, make
this
them
is nothing different.
informers, basically.
And also when they get women at checkpoints or whatever,
yeah.
and they will try to get provocative pictures of them.
Yeah, I've
Even
heard that about,
if they're strip searching them, and then use that, to blackmail them into giving them information.
I've heard that, and
happens
also
all the
about hair
time.
salons. Have you heard that about hair salons where they like dope the women and then take these photos? Some really weird stories of yeah.
I mean, the actual mechanics of it, I don't know. But when I was there, it was like, because even before the election in 2006 and the blockade and all that, there's divisions within. I mean, the divide and conquer thing. So it was Fatah, it was Hamas, and of course those also aren't homogenous entities. So there's all kinds, and people will, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and all kinds of stuff going on. And so it's like when they would target Hamas, leadership or whoever, or the other parties, back when I was there, it would be an Apache helicopter would come in and bomb them, and usually in their car, and then fly off. And so somebody had to mark that person's car, and let them know, like, okay, so they have to get some kind of information in there. And it also shows that they're quite capable of targeting Hamas with minimal collateral damage if they want to. They did it for a long time. But what I'm saying is that, and of course, I didn't actually see Israelis do this, but I heard enough stories, and also not just from not only from Palestinians, but from people who are the organizations that were in both Israel and in Palestine while I was there. This is a widespread practice, and of course, intelligence agencies do this all the time. It's not just the IDF. So, how do they get assets? How do they get sources? Oftentimes they're not willing. They have to blackmail them. They have to coerce them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, that's why they have these informers, don't they? And it's so ironic, everyone on the sort of Zionist side is always talking about, this amazing democracy, and it's the only democracy in the Middle East, and then all their sort of moduses of working are just like, my mum grew up in communist Bulgaria, and like everyone was surveyed, everyone had files with the secret police. Your friends informed on you. I mean, and also people that she knew.
Stuff,
yeah, it's horrific. I mean, what's the difference? Like, why is this just not like any other totalitarian regime? How on earth are people so stupid not to see what's going on? But it's just mad. How blind.
It's the biggest joke. You want to come in here? Biggest joke. What kind of democracy operates? And I was just saying, it's the biggest joke. It's literally the biggest con on earth. Okay.
I know.
What kind of democracy operates an apartheid system? Okay.
Yeah,
there's
none.
No democracy that does that.
There's not. People don't know this though. They don't know it.
They don't care. Some don't know, and some just don't care.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, do you ever listen to Alistair Crook on YouTube?
Yeah, he's good. He's good. Yeah,
he's amazing. So my father-in-law knew him really well, and worked with him a bit over the years before he died, actually. And but he's so knowledgeable about the whole system there, and it's really fascinating, kind of. And also John Mearsheimer talks a lot about it, but it is just extraordinary, like absolute apartheid, and like how people don't know that. I don't understand.
Or they won't accept it. They won't accept it.
Sneer at you and think you're a stupid idiot for even bringing it up. But there are absolutely different laws, different rights. That is not democracy. So yeah, you're right, Artless. I mean, how how on earth are we constantly? But this, ages ago we were talking about the slogans and. Like that we've been force-fed for like decades. The only democracy in the Middle East, the most moral army, making the desert bloom.
Right to exist, constant
yeah, exactly. They want to wipe out the Jews, all this sort of, and it's just been absolutely bludgeoned, for decades and decades. So that it takes a long time to kind of just get out of that and read books, like listen to people talking about it, and then you suddenly see it for what it is. But it's extraordinary that lots of people don't. That's what I just think. How can you not see it? Come on.
No, there was this one. I can't remember her name. Go ahead, Artless.
No, I was gonna say it's the same thing of watching this whitewashing of saying, well, we're really, don't you feel sorry for the woman there who, say you're a feminist, do you not want to liberate these women from Hamas? I'm like, did they tell you they wanted to be liberated from Hamas?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They had like one of the highest education rates going on.
Yeah,
okay,
and they have other issues at the moment, like being,
they prefer.
Yeah.
And also, the thing that really irks me is when we compare the current situation is where women are having to have C-section without anesthesia. Women are like, as women,
or babies being cut out of their dead mothers before they die.
The children are being murdered.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, do you really think that they probably prefer life under Israel than they do to Hamas, given those kind of conditions? Like, are you effing stupid? Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. They are stupid. They're stupid.
Well, and they it's just, and it's so stupid. It's like, it's like people. I don't know. I wonder, like, do they think it's just like a bad part of town over there? Like, it's all great, and they just decided to like have this raid on October 7th. Like,
they
act up every once in a while. It's like, if you're under those conditions, and the only group that has consistently not sold you out, who is willing to fight and die for you, is Hamas. That is the truth. It's not Fatah. It's not Hezbollah. Of course, Hezbollah is they're Lebanese. Yeah, I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they're not good allies. But I'm saying, who is it? Jordan? No. All this stuff's like, it's only Hamas. Hamas has never sold them out, not once. And these guys are ride or freaking die. And are they? Is a particular type of Islam, radical, I guess you'd call radical or fundamentalist Islam, part of their ideology? Yeah. Do I give a shit? No, I don't. I don't care.
It's only certain strands.
I know those women, and when it starts to settle, it's not going to be some sort of crazy caliphate. The people who say that are out of their mind. They're out of their mind.
They're either liars or they're stupid. But have you bought? I bought the book by.
They know.
Yeah,
this. There's a massive ISIS hashtag.
They can't be that stupid.
Sorry, go on, Anna.
No, sorry, I was going to say there's this amazing book that I've just bought that I'm just starting to read called Hamas by Paola Caridi. Have you seen it? I think it's quite new. She's Italian.
It was by Tarek something that was like it was contained. That was like Hamas contained.
Oh no, this is this Italian writer.
It was before, of course.
Oh no, yeah. No, this is quite new, I think. Yeah, I think it's pretty new. Anyway, it's called Hamas, and it's by Paola Caridi. But it's been translated into English. Obviously, I'm not reading it in Italian. And I've only just started it, so I can't tell you an awful lot about it. But so far it's really interesting because it's just about the development of it, and like how it went against Fatah. The reasons why it sort of rose in Gaza as opposed to, the West Bank. And anyway, well, whatever. But I mean, I want to read it because I want to know, because I don't think I know anything about what it is, what it means.
We're not allowed to. We're not supposed to even ask.
No, you're not allowed to. If you ask, you're a Hamas lover.
Yeah.
You can't educate yourself, God forbid you educate yourself.
You terrorist supporting, rape loving, and a bad man. Or not bad man, bad woman.
But anyway, I'll tell you about it when I get through it. It's massive, so it's going to take me ages.
But that's why there's something almost. Yeah, I was gonna say this is why there's something like really chilling about the campaign of extermination that Israel is waging against against the Palestinians.
Mm.
It's really systemic as well, like you know, the destruction of their libraries, the destruction of their universities,
Yeah.
their cultural heritage,
Yeah.
history,
Everything.
their case files,
Their records.
anything that's got
Yeah.
a distinctly
Yeah.
Palestinian identity.
Mhm.
Yeah. And all
Yeah.
of that is
No, they're making the
aimed at
place
part of the process
unlivable.
of the
Yeah.
dehumanization. It's,
Mm.
yeah, unlivable.
And
Also, it's also a campaign to ensure that there's nothing that is distinctly Palestinian, because you know one of the biggest things that Israel likes to do is
there's
thing
no
of,
Palestine.
oh well, they're all Arabs. There's no
Yeah,
separate,
exactly. There's no Palestine. There's no P in Arabic.
It's all Arab. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. There's no P.
Yeah,
There's no
you know, and it's like.
It's so ridiculous. Oh, yeah,
so
there was
they
never the
love doing
place.
this, and it's
Yeah.
But it's just I mean, I don't know enough about it, even though I keep on
yes,
buying
there was
books
never a place called
behind
Palestine.
read,
Oh
but
gosh, that's my favorite one. Honestly, there was never.
there's never P in everyone's like, yeah, because
So
it's
ridiculous.
Palestine.
So ridiculous.
But every idiot falls for it, you know.
Mhm.
I listened to actually there's a really interesting book that I did read called A Line in the Sand. Have you read that? By James
who?
Barr. By James Barr. It's called A Line in the Sand.
No.
Really highly
By who?
recommended. James Barr.
I'll add it to the video description, viewers.
It's A Line in the Sand. It's about the Sykes-Picot line between the British and the French that divided up the Middle East, and how Iraq and Lebanon went to the French, and Jordan and Palestine, you know, went to the British. And just the wrangling, and oh my God, I kept on posting bits actually online when I was reading it, little snippets, because it was so interesting. It was just about how the British were very anti-Zionist, and it was only because they saw a little clever way of outfoxing the French that they suddenly decided to support it in the Middle East, because it just suddenly worked for their interests, not for any other reason. And yeah, it's a lot about Iraq in there as well, and like just everything that just went wrong with, you know, at that point. So I'd highly recommend that. And John Pilger's Freedom Next Time. That's amazing. There's a whole chapter about Palestine and a whole chapter about Afghanistan, which was horrific to read, actually. Absolutely.
Yeah, and also Robert Frisk. I think he's dead.
Yes.
He's dead, but he has a couple of books like he has a few books.
Robert Frisk.
He and the war, the war for the great. Anyway, I'll put it up. Sorry, I can't remember. Anyway, he has some really thick books, but he was a correspondent, I think, for the Independent. He actually lived in these places. He lived in these places, and his work is also, I mean, and it's when you realize how shit some of our education is. I mean, just
nobody is taught intentionally. I think really, I think we're not taught.
You get the very kind of Santa Claus, you know, a sanitized version. A couple of mistakes here and there, but you know, we're always just trying to be good. You know, whoopsie.
Oh God! I've just realized it's 11 o'clock. How did this happen? I don't know.
I know. I was just thinking we have to wrap up, but ladies, this has been fantastic. Artless, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Hey, let me tell you, I could do this. Well, I don't know if I could, but yeah, if this becomes a regular thing, I'd be quite happy. But thank you so much for sharing 2.5 hours of your Friday with us, with me, with whoever. So let's wrap it up. Yeah. So Anna, is there anything you wanna say before we wrap this up until next time?
Well,
on this or anything?
No, I mean,
you want to plug?
No, I don't want to plug, but it was just brilliant talking to you both. I really enjoyed it, and I'd love to talk about anything else with you both.
Well, just add it to the group chat. Just add it to the group chat, and if I can can pretend to know something about it, I will do my best.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely. That would be fantastic. And
I'm looking for somebody. I want to do a show soon on the Indian election. Actually, I actually my day job, or used to because most of my research has been in India, and I've been so tunnel visioned on Israel Palestine that I was like, oh yeah, that election. And so if anybody out there is learned or somewhat learned or interested in Indian politics,
but I have no
I'd love
idea.
to have you on, because I have a lot to say about Congress, especially high command. And also there's the Hindufa and Zionist Love Fest, but that's another story. So if anybody out there wants to come and join me or be on the panel or can suggest somebody who wants to talk about that, I'm on the prowl for somebody. So Anna, thank you. Artless, do you want to say anything? You want any final words for our mighty MS peers out there, or today or in the future?
I'm okay. I think you guys have covered it all.
Okay.
I think you both have covered most of the main points. I think, yeah.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Yep. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. This has been this might have been the best Morbid Symptoms podcast yet. Sorry, Tony. I love our times together, but the bar's been set. So I just want to thank Artless again and Anna for joining. It's been a really to join me on thinking through and speaking honestly and openly about these issues, which also requires saying something that people might not like or that you might not like later. But I think it's really important that we have these issues. And the answer, do Muslim women need to be saved? The question is no. They'll handle their own stuff, so don't make things difficult for them, however well-meaning your intentions may be. So I will call that a night, and I will end with a bit of information for those who want to like and follow the podcast. And if anybody has a few extra dollars or pounds they want to buy us a coffee, that'll be great, because then I can get a nice backdrop or something and people don't have to see my barren guest room, as lovely as it is. See you next time. Peace out. Bye.